Wednesday, April 29th, 2026. Welcome to the Global Defense War Monthly Panel. I'm John Michael Chambers, and thank you for joining us again. Each month, we broadcast this program, and we cover from a military perspective just what is going on behind the scenes, dismantling the deceptions to help us all make sense of all the madness. We have a quick announcement I'd like to make here. Juan O'Savin is joining us in our May Patriot Q&A Power Hour. This is a private Zoom room where Juan O'Savin will join us May 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Mark your calendars. One solid hour strictly to answer your questions. Learn about access to this by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Premium Portal. We also, of course, have our free subscription. Everything we publish is free to the public. Juan and I look forward to seeing you there. All right, allow me to first set the stage before I bring on our esteemed military and intelligence panel. The storm you haven't seen yet is the one that will break the world. Patriots, you have felt the tremors. You've watched the headlines. You've sensed that something massive is just beneath the surface, pressing against the thin ice of normalcy. But the storm you have seen, that was only the prelude. The storm you haven't seen yet is the one that will break the world. Not destroy it, break it open. Crack the shell of deception wide enough for the truth to pour through like the light through a shattered dam. By the time this all plays out, here's what most are not ready to accept. The overwhelming majority of Congress, both sides of the aisle, may very well be gone. Not voted out necessarily, some retired, but they will be gone, removed by the weight of evidence, by the machinery of military tribunals, by the simple, undeniable fact that they were never serving you. They were serving themselves, their donors, and the globalist apparatus that has held this nation hostage for generations. So what follows? This is the question I intend to ask of this panel right here in just a moment, because the answers determine everything. What follows is not chaos, it is restoration. What follows is not a power vacuum, it is a reclaiming. What follows is the most difficult, necessary, and beautiful chapter in American history. Now, what about the Christ Trump post recently dropped? It is not what the cynics assumed. It was not blasphemy or political theater. It is rather a declaration of alignment, a recognition that this fight was never about one man, one party, nor one nation. It's about something older, something deeper, something that transcends the headlines. Then, a week or so later, the reveals began, and the focus is turned to who? The Vatican, the Pope, and the Vatican. Why the Vatican? Because the deepest corruption hides behind the holiest masks. The financial networks, the cover-ups, the alliances with powers that serve everything except the one they claim to represent. The reveals will not be about petty scandal. They will be about systemic rot exposed not to destroy faith, but to purify it, to separate the divine from the demonic, to remind the world that the institution is not the faith and the man in white is not the Messiah. You see how this works? So one by one, the pillars fall, not to leave us in rubble, but to clear the ground for something new. And your role in the coming storm, do not be afraid. You were shown all of this and are being shown all of this for a reason. So stay prayerful. The spiritual battle intensifies as the earthly one becomes visible. Stay grounded. The noise will be deafening. Your center must be unshakable. Stay connected. The lone patriot is a target. The community is a fortress. The storm you haven't seen yet, it's coming. But storms do not last forever. And on the other side of this storm, a world broken open, a people awakened, a nation reborn, a course correction for all of humanity. Yes, the dawning of the golden age is upon us. Thank you for being here. Former Australian Army Special Forces retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi served 24 years in the Australian Army. He's the national leader of Australia One Party. Be sure to tune into Bosi Briefs every other Monday, where I sit down with Ricardo and cover the events of the 2 weeks. Joining us on this panel right now is Chuck Sellers. He's a retired U.S. Army colonel with just under 26 years of active duty service. He was commissioned in 1978 as an infantry officer and completed the Special Forces qualification course in 1983. If you want to learn more about Chuck Sellers, I just sat down with Chuck about 2 weeks ago in Conversations of Consequence, where you'll get to learn of his journey from the beginning to where we are and where things are heading. Michael Jaco, retired veteran Navy SEAL, dedicated a total of 35 years serving the U.S. government in high-risk environments. Popular podcast, Michael Jaco, is joining us in a moment. We also have retired Army Derek Johnson. He's an expert on tabulating and covering our Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump's laws and orders and current events. So we've got quite a bit to cover here. Bear with me. Well, thank you all very much for being here. And please visit, where do we visit? We visit jmcbroadcasting.com. It's early morning here, folks. Visit my site. Click on contributors up top in the left-hand corner, and you'll see all these gentlemen and other contributors to the network. Their more expanded biographies and a way to reach out, contact them, and follow their work. All right, so right now, before we begin, I really want our audience, our viewers all around the world, which is expanding. Welcome all the new folks that are taking a look around. This is one of the good places you want to find out what's happening. You're looking at a panel of men with extensive military and intelligence backgrounds. So I urge you to listen very closely over the next 90 minutes or so as we begin to comb through some of the events that are unfolding right now in this global defense war. To our panel and viewers, I want to thank you all very much for being here. All right, let's, good evening, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'm going to jump right into the scientists. 10 dead, 5 missing, most notably David Wilcock, with a focus on, shall we say, off-planet and other, as Michael Jaco told us before, sensitive activity. This comes at a time when President Trump has announced we may expect, and somewhat soon, the beginning of the files concerning Area 51, UFOs, and off-planet activity to be released. I, for one, find this highly suspect at this time that 10 scientists reported dead and 5 reported missing. Call me crazy. Coincidence? I don't know. What are your views and opinions about this? We're going to comb through the panel. President Trump fires all National Science Board members that were created in 1950. At the same time, these scientists have disappeared, and at the same time, an announcement's been made that we're going to be releasing files that, to my understanding, have been there since Dwight Eisenhower. So the stage has been set. That's a long-winded statement. End question. We'll begin at the top of the panel with our good friend, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi. What are your views about this? A lot of interesting things being unpacked all at the same period of time. What say you, sir?
Good evening, John. Good evening, gentlemen. Great to be here. Very quickly, what we're seeing is this tsunami of events, and it's designed to keep us a little off balance. That's on purpose. There's a reason for that, because there's so much coming out, and the target audience, to use Derek's professional description of the group that a PSYOP is being operated against, comprises many different psychographic and demographic groupings, and so everyone gets a different message, a different way to achieve the same objective. Now, in relation to the scientists, for example, this is just one example of what's happening everywhere else. Traditional groups are being replaced. Traditional individuals are being replaced. Most of those are corrupted. All are under control. Some were undercover and they're going to, and that's okay. That's as John and I have mentioned many times before. All the actors in this particular play have a role. They have a purpose to fulfill, and once that's done, they're gone. And so people will come and go. The way it's being done, though, is interesting. This massive level of speculation, which causes the people concern, is by design. My father was an author, playwright, and poet. And he said, whenever you're telling a story, if you really want to engage the audience, let them put the last piece of the puzzle into place. Because if you just present the whole thing, they'll look at it and change the channel and find out what else is on. But if you can intrigue them, get them concerned, get them interested to figure it out for themselves. Now, I like cryptic crosswords, which are highly complex. There's a whole code behind them, but that's not for everybody. Some just like to watch a straightforward show and guess the end of the show before the end comes. And so all of these different approaches have to be covered. The scientists fall beautifully into that category. The science board gone, new scientists disappear. Have they gone to Valhalla? Have they are they in some sort of global witness protection? Have they been moved into a position of real authority and power to do what's got to be done down the track? And the fact that we're speculating is exactly what's got to be done, because people love to put that last piece into place. It engages them and they stay with the story. They feel some satisfaction when they find that they have actually discerned the truth behind the matter, and that gets them on board. They talk about it. They talk to their friends. Their friends talk to their friends. And slowly, bit by bit, the target audience is won over. Not only directly by the psyop itself, but by the crowd. And I'll finish on this. Every businessman knows that the best reference is word of mouth. Advertising is one thing. You can tell people everything you want, but they're going to hear this, and they're going to hear that. They're going to see this, they're going to experience that. They're going to see this, they're going to experience that. So if the word of mouth is the most effective form of advertising, that's exactly what the white hats are getting into the people's minds. Let them work it out. Let them put the last piece into place. It's part of the show. Wilcox, I think, is a different matter. That might be legitimate. We don't know for certain. But it's certainly, we're seeing with the scientists is what is being played out writ large across the planet, whether it's national governments or whether it's the National Science Board, makes no difference. Same procedure, same result, which is the control of the system by the white hats.
What a brilliant analysis. Thank you, sir. We're going to take that same narrative and question through the board. Colonel Chuck Sellers, welcome back, sir. What's your views of the scientist issue that's as it's unfolding?
Oh, it's really interesting. When you look where these people came from, four of them are directly related to Los Alamos and Sandia National Labs in New Mexico. That's interesting in itself, having been there, because that's where all the work on the nuclear weapons gets done, this and that. And I've been to the place and I've seen it. I've seen the training that they go through there. So it is very tight security in that place. So interesting. The next four were from California, all associated with NASA Jet Propulsion Lab and Caltech. All this stuff is, when you go down and see the qualifications of the missing people, all of them were in astrophysics, mechanical research, all these hard science things. So the links are really strong between them. The question is going to be, how do you connect the links with all of them? And then I also should have mentioned, on the East Coast, the two from the East Coast were from MIT. One was a professor, an MIT professor, and the other one was a pharmaceutical scientist on the East Coast. So it's a really interesting thing. I don't believe any of it's by accident, even though some might look like an accident. I think there is meaning behind all of it, and the question is going to be figuring it out, just like what Ricardo was saying.
Thank you very much. Hey, all right, rock and roll. Looks like the aerospace engineers have triggered some device. Anyway, thank you for weighing in on that important subject.
One more, John. Yeah. Just one more. You probably should mention the last one, because I think it very likely could be related. And this was retired Army Air Force Major General William McCaslin, who went missing in the Sandia Mountains just a few weeks back. Real similar to these other 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that he was the former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Airfield, which is the nexus of all of the UFO stories and research, storage for the artifacts that are recovered from crash sites. That was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he commanded Wright-Patterson. Very interesting.
No kidding. Nothing is as it seems, folks. Thank you, Colonel Sellers. We take the same question, our good friend Michael Jaco. Welcome back, sir.
So President Trump is saying that he's going to reveal in July of this year. President Trump is the 47th president. It was 1947, July of 1947, that Roswell crash happened. So you look at the numbers and you see the similarities of, all this stuff. How much is he going to reveal remains to be seen. Knowing Trump is probably not going to be a lot, but he's just basically baiting everyone like he normally does. Now, you look at David Wilcock and look at all these other people that are disappearing or suiciding or being killed or whatever. This has been going on for a long time. We go all the way back to Tesla. Tesla, was, I think killed as well. And his information was stolen. We're seeing the same thing happening now. Now, it's kind of interesting. It's the press is releasing all of these people, just recently. Although some of them, were going back a year, 2 years, that they have, disappeared or, whatever's happened to them. Some of these people are put in like a witness protection program. That is important because having been part of protective details and all that, it's very, very hard and it's very expensive to have people that are, protected. I've been part of these details for quite a bit, and they're not easy. You need a lot of people to do it. You need people of a very high level. Of course, some of these people are being taken out by people of a very, very high level, like myself and like the gentlemen that are in this audience or in our discussion group. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. Now, if we look at what's going on in Iran, it's very similar to what happened with the COVID. COVID is, if you look at Donald Trump, he did Operation Warp Speed. I believe he did the same thing, which basically speeded up the process where it took them off guard, they being the deep state, and foiled their plans that they had perfectly laid out. Trump was not supposed to be elected. That was, a hiccup in their system. Hillary was supposed to come in and start this process of, completely controlling humanity. So all of this is being, stopped out. The war in Iran, that was coming, but he, just like with COVID, he kicked it off early. And that's disrupting their machinery, disrupting the plans that they had, and makes them more vulnerable. So one of the things that they want to do is stop us from ascending in consciousness. I think that the vaccination program that they had during COVID was part of that process. I think that a lot of people have adapted, which they didn't, think would happen. And when I say adapted, is basically we're reaching a higher level of, physicality, consciousness, and so forth. And I think that's very important and will be instrumental as we move forward in, this takedown of the deep state and then this golden age that we're going to move into. So people like I look at my compadres here, and these are people that are definitely going to be going forward in the future. You see that with a lot of other people. You see, unfortunately, some people are falling off. That vaccination program was designed to kill a lot of people, but it hasn't happened on the level that they anticipated. So that's another thing that's happening. So the information, the anti-gravitics, and free energy and so forth, that we should have been already enjoying, decades ago, is really going to start to come out now, thanks to I think the Trump administration and so forth. So lots of great things to look forward to. Keep an open mind. You're going to see people that did David commit suicide. There's a lot of different people have a lot of different ideas about that, but we're going to continue to see people suicide themselves, all right, or suicided, and we're going to see a lot of people disappear, and we're going to see people murdered and so forth. And it's not just the scientists; it's people with deep pockets that are also being murdered. The people that would have funded these programs and so forth. So it's a big reveal that's coming up. We're seeing it now. I think that we're going to see a lot of these people that we thought had been taken off the table. They're going to show up, and that's going to be fantastic, because
Mhm.
if a guy like David Wilcock comes back, along with Princess Diana, Michael Jackson, these are all people that everybody looked up to, and then they come out. That's going to be a massive reveal. Whether they do, whether they're not, whether they were killed, whether they are still alive somewhere in witness protection, remains to be seen. But think about that. If they actually came out, that would be a massive revelation and a wake-up call for humanity.
It certainly would be. I'd love to see the gates and the doors open at Valhalla nice and wide and bring them all back. That would be a wonderful moment for all of us, wouldn't it? Great analysis. And just a quick follow-up comment. I agree with you, Michael, in terms of what we anticipate the president to do: drip, 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 in terms of the releasing of these files. So our audience, everyone listening, those that are on the side of eager, waiting for the fire hose of it, I think we'll probably need to be a little bit patient, like we were with the Epstein releases, just the same. Thank you, Michael. Derek Johnson, patiently waiting, looking rather dapper. Thanks for being here, Derek. What do you say about all this?
Well, first, it's always an honor to be here. These are the experts when it comes to years and years of tactics, strategies of your irregular and unconventional warfare that I tend to get obviously a bad name sometimes with people out there in the target audience world. When I go around to these events, it just happened this weekend again. I'm like, President Trump says all the time, there's two things, right? You got to give people what they want, right? There's one thing, and that's the target audience we talk about that just love them some drama. But then there's the other side of the applicational operations with all these experts here, all their years. I tell people all the time, my DDG 14 don't replicate anything remotely close to theirs. But because of what God did with me and what happened with me when I'm putting that back in now. We're in this new war right now. So, but President Trump says all the time, the cure can't be bigger than the problem. It's really not that difficult. It's just what people's focus are on. And unfortunately, we couldn't stop the world way back in 2021 or whatever year you want to name. We couldn't stop the world and say, here's what we're about to do, because what would the enemy have done? Gone deep in these trenches and these tunnels, as we know where they go. So, but the thing I remind people first and foremost, military government. I mean, we're so far ahead. Lieutenant Colonel Bosse says this all the time about, with special operations, it's 3 to 6 days, 3 to 6 weeks, 3 to 6 months, depending on the topic, that we're all ahead of the curve, right? And if people would go sink their teeth into what is a military government, it is an actual application. It is not a philosophy or an ideology or anything like that. It's an applicational form of government that the Constitution supports. We are in that. It is. That's the only reason I'm sitting here. I was contracted to write those books and follow what President Trump's doing. It's all there. And until people want to see that, that's the special operations, irregular warfare, unconventional warfare that all these gentlemen right here have years of experience in. And as Jaco just said, it's layers. And you can't put an emphasis anymore on that plurality of the word layers. I mean, it's variables. So it could be this, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. What I remind people is who's the commander? And I've been showing people this book right here, and I just happen to have it, is the military government and martial law. And I've got my note right here. I always just show people on page 33. It says the character of government to be established over conquered territory depends entirely upon the laws of the dominant power or the orders of the military commander. And look, I mean, again, that's what we're veterans, retired veterans, and then all their knowledge and what little bit I bring to the table, we are absolutely in that. So there's going to be distractions. There's going to be some things that are real. Some of this is delayed. And then, what they've shown RFK doing. Fauci's come back into the picture. His name's popped up again. The NIH, COVID. I showed people this weekend at the event I was at. I said, how did we know, we the military, President Donald John Trump, the face, the wartime commander? By the way, Jesse Waters, I don't watch Fox News, but someone sent me the clip last night of Jesse Waters saying exactly wartime president last night. All right, President Trump. So he's a wartime president in 2020. He's a wartime president now. Exactly. So that's your 45-47. But when you look at the National Biodefense Strategy, if people would go read that and go remember that feeling, what they felt during 2020 with Fauci and all these different what scientists would have been in the background, a lot of people forget about the scientists. A lot of people forget about all these people that were in these labs being funded and different things, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Who they are, good, bad, or indifferent. But look at the labs. Well, go look at this biodefense strategy. It will read word for word what you felt and experienced out there, ladies and gentlemen. The whole, oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, the little arrows on the floor at the store and all these things. And then people falling out of work, people not showing up at work and understaffed. And how did they know, they, the military, the generals, admirals, all your chiefs of staff and all your experts in those, how did they know to write that 2018, what you had experienced in 2020, word for word? So it shows that, look, COVID, retaliation, all right, biodefense. And then I do believe we had some nuclear excitement, as we call it, with the Golden Dome in D.C. during January 2021 because of the CRAM and all the different things we were looking at that military would know. So the two biggest things that you could possibly do to people, biodefense and then also nuclear. So, the whole thing's in operation. People have to remember that. And so these scientists, it's the same thing whether you're seeing 73 generals right now going into the aid of Mark Kelly. Well, all these people, they're bringing attention to these people. I think personally, if I was going to take an educated guess, it could be something towards, again, like people put too much stock into the title and entitlement unless they're walking the walk and talking the talk of which they walk, right? So these generals, the law is the law, and the law reads the way it does. And you either have integrity or you don't. And so it's like I told people, those generals, 73 generals, well, there's about 4,800 retired generals. So let's look at the bid number here, and let's look at what's on President Trump's side versus the 73 military industrial complex that, once again, were they compromised? We don't know. But I remind people, this is a military government. Let President Donald John Trump, the generals, the admirals, reveal everything. Don't jump ship. Listen to JACO, listen to Lieutenant Colonel Bosey. Don't get that gut feeling of your gut feeling because it's not correct. All right, this is an operation on purpose, and it had to be done this way. I know it stinks, the game theory. A lot of people know that term now, and it stinks, the weight game. But if you're awake, you should be enjoying it because you're truly watching the draining of the swamp. And I think it's a soft landing, distractional for what is coming because they are most certainly working on Department of Justice, Guantanamo Bay, and tribunals. That is a fact.
Well, thank you, Derek. And it's no surprise to me that you were contracted to write that book. For those coming aboard, learn more about Derek's work. He's, I'll say, an expert in connecting the dots on the executive orders, the law of war manual updates, the presidential executive administrative documents, and so forth, and relating them and helping us analyze the events blow by blow as they occur. So thank you, Derek. Also, just a quick comment on Fox News. You mentioned Jesse Waters calling the president a wartime president. Hey, Fox, you caught up with us. We've been saying that for 6 years. All right, let's move on to the next question. Kash Patel. If Kash Patel gets done what he has professed on Mario Bartiromo recently, he gets that accomplished and starts slapping some handcuffs on the low-lying fruit in Russiagate, he's going to go down in the history books. Thank you, Kash Patel. Before we talk about that, let's pedal back a bit to the top of the panel with Ricardo Bossi, SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center. Big news. Big news, and I think it's the tip of the iceberg. If you can, please define for our viewers what's happening with the SPLC. What did Kash reveal, and what are your views about that, retired Lieutenant Colonel Bossi?
Yeah, this is a good one. I enjoyed watching this come out because, once again, this is going to be replayed again and again and again. What they're striking at is one of the most divisive issues in the United States, and that's the black-white one, which is largely manufactured. The facts of the black-white relations, yes, there's some regrettable actions in the past, but it's been blown so badly out of proportion as to be a sucking chest wound on the entire nation for so long, and it's just wrong in fact. But to convince someone they've been betrayed, it's easier to betray someone than convince them they've been betrayed. We know that. And so coming out and just reporting it is one thing. But then to show the Southern Poverty Law Center in bed with the Ku Klux Klan, paying them off to cause trouble, you can't ignore it now. You even the most trenchant racist, black or white, has to look at that and say, my God, we've been played, and you've been played for fools. You have. And so this is one of those issues that when we say it's going to break people, it doesn't break me. I mean, I just laugh. A, it's not my country. B, I love the truth. Regardless of the pain that comes with it, I love the truth. But those that have wedded themselves to one or other side of this particular fight now have to admit that they have been played for the longest time. And this, again, is writ small on a world writ large, where every contest on this planet, whether it's between a husband and a wife, because she watched something on TV or he listened to something on the radio, and it poisons the relationship between the husband and wife through to conflicts between nations that lead to tens of millions of deaths because there's a war for something that doesn't seem to make sense. And at the end of that war, the alleged heroes and victors live in poverty. The whole design is to step in. This is the cabal. This is the black hats. Create the false opposition and then feed both sides of that equation. And I've used that on we've got the example of the husband and wife where ideologies and ideas and social proof has been provided that these are good things to do to spruce up your marriage, and all of a sudden it destroys the marriage, through to, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again because repetition is the mother of mastery, the creation of communist China under the alleged leadership of Mao Zedong was exactly that. It was manufactured by the cabal. The U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs, George Marshall, allegedly the hero of all, but actually made sure that he's a deep state actor, as most of the senior leadership of the U.S. was, and up until recently has been. They established Mao Zedong as the counter to Chiang Kai-shek, who was a Democrat who was sidelined, went to Taiwan, and then they backed Mao Zedong so they could have this communist capitalist battle, and they feed both sides of the war. We know that. And even Chiang Kai-shek played a role because then he could be a thorn in communist China's side, another point of friction. They love creating points of friction. And so what you're seeing with the Southern Poverty Law Center, there's a group of despicable individuals hooking up with the KKK in order to feed this black-white racism in the United States, which has manifested itself. The damage socially is immeasurable. But in a practical sense, the deaths of hundreds of thousands of millions of blacks, whether it be through gunshot wounds and abortion, which has been one of the objectives, starting from Susan Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was to rid the United States of blacks through abortion. All these things are intertwined, they're interlaced, they're designed. And so when this finally hit the mainstream media, it was a big it was a moment of celebration for a lot of us to say, this is the pain that's coming, but not for everybody. Everyone's going to have their own pain. You'll be speaking about the Catholics shortly. They'll have their own pain. The black and whites, the blacks and the whites, the racists, both sides, they're going to have their pain. And this is that when is the pain coming? It's been here for some time. It just depends which part of the target audience you are.
Thank you for that analysis. And I'm on a hunch, I'm going to say Kash Patel probably has on his checklist or battle plan, if you will, the Clinton Foundation next. Wait till we open up that can of worms. We'll take the same question to Colonel Chuck Sellers, sir. SPLC, your views on these revelations, at least revelations to many.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the Southern Poverty Law Center, but what does come to mind is years ago when I was first realized that I'm back in the conservative side on all of this stuff. When I started to listen to conservative talk radio through Rush Limbaugh, probably was my first guy that I really listened to. All I remember is that when the Southern Poverty Law Center was mentioned, whenever it was mentioned, it was on the wrong side of history, even back that far when Rush was on the air and talking about it. When you start looking at who's lining up on which side, SPLC was always on the wrong side from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even know about the cabal back then. I mean, we all know about it now. Go figure, they work for the cabal. Way to go, Ricardo. I mean, that's exactly right.
Yep. Well, you know what? SPLC, for those that are just learning about what they really do, wake up, smell the coffee, and start forming new opinions. Michael, we want to take this on, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious they were, fomenting hate and derision amongst the different races on purpose so that they could money launder. So they get money for, all these different programs to stop, racism, and they were creating the racism themselves. And that's a big reveal here. The fraud is, so widespread. We have, Ilhan Omar. She's got her talking point just recently where she was talking about World War II, but she mentioned it as WW11, World War 11. So we've missed a few wars here, over time. But that's the kind of mentality that we have amongst these different races, that have been pushed here. I'm not gonna. I've been to Somalia, and it was not a very good place, and a lot of nepotism that goes on there, and we're seeing the same thing now in our country. People that are inbreeding and so forth. That's why we have problems with people coming in and doing the fraud and so forth, because they're on the lower scale and they can be used and manipulated. And it's very frustrating for those of us that through merit, all of us here have risen up the ranks, and we see people like we're talking about these different generals that seem to be siding with someone that's obviously not part of the good team. So all this stuff is being exposed, and I think it's fantastic. It's coming at a rate that's easily digestible at this point. I don't think it's going to get much faster than it is right now. It's so fast that some people can't handle it. They're getting all distraught or whatever. But this is the way it's going to be going forward. More and more things. History is going to have to be rewritten. There's so many things that we've been lied to about. Southern Poverty Law Center is just one of them. How many others? The Clinton Foundation, all the things that they did and manipulated, all the evil that they fomented, all different kinds of things like that are coming out, and they're coming out at a very nice clip now. So not fire hose level, but pretty close.
Thanks. Would you expect the Clinton Foundation to be somewhere coming up soon on the docket? I mean, that's not going to go unaddressed in this war. Would you concur?
I would concur, because we're already starting to see people talk about it and bring up information, and every time we've seen something that gets revealed, there's a layering that starts to come in, information that starts to be revealed, and then the big reveal. So Clinton Foundation is basically we've seen some of that. So that's a very good point. That I think they're next. Long overdue.
Excellent. You bet. It's going to be quite a relief for many of us and quite a shock for the target audience, as it were. Thank you, Michael. Derek Johnson, SPLC, Kash Patel, taking no prisoners now, opening up Pandora's box. What say you?
I mean, this is perfect for a Southern guy, right? Because the South. I grew up not far from Selma, Alabama, and everybody knows whether it's real history, what everybody wants to get in that topic, but you know, it's such. We have been saying this for so long. Matter of fact, I went to a funeral last week. This is something personal. I went to a funeral last week. I haven't seen a buddy of mine that I graduated with in 25 years, black guy. And when I grabbed him on the arm and spun him around, he hugged me like a long lost buddy from the veteranhood or whatever. And it was one of those embrace it. And if anybody could have just seen that, not for show and not for politics or anything like that, but people could see the realness there, the genuine. And we've been telling people for years, like there's no racism anymore. Like if it is, it's real ignorant. And it's someone that's just, chooses to be hateful. They choose, but it's small. So this is redemption. I have a friend. I don't know if he'll ever join or not. He's up in his age now, but I'm going to reach out to him. I think it'd be cool at this point. But I met him a few years back when I was doing my master's degree at Colorado State, and we would sit in the Veterans Center, and he was in his late 60s then, using his GI Bill, going to college. But Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, he's an Australian. And he came to the States in the 70s to get his citizenship, and he joined the Army. And he thought, well, if I'm gonna do it, I better go big or go home. And he Green Beret, special forces. And we used to sit there and talk about things. And he said, there's three fundamental things that changed America: leaving the gold standard, the Unified Budget Act, and the Civil Rights Act. And we'd sit there and talk to so many people, but the Civil Rights Act, they used, if anybody, I tell my black friends all the time, you should be pissed off. They used you as poster boys and poster children. They used your race, and they treated you like you were stupid and low IQ. If anybody should be pissed, it should be you. And hey, if there's anybody who can talk about it, I can, because of where I'm from. And so this is great. Revenge in the other way. It was all part of the military government. It's part of the judiciary takedown. I show the laws and orders of 2017 to 2021. The legislative branch is being reset. Then 21 to 2025, the government in exile and the puppet shadow government, which is a hybrid warfare mix, and the irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, the heavy, operations of that. That's your resetting of the executive branch. And right now, it's everything judicial, whether it's courts or third circuit court, or the fourth circuit this or fifth, whatever. It's all court, judge. And then all these lobbyists being taken down, all these law firms. Saw President Trump put all those different law firms on blast last year in executive orders. So it's really cool. And it's also tying into the power to the people. Going back to look at Abraham Lincoln. I pulled it up just where I could have the direct words, where it says, in his first inaugural address, I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the United States. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so. All right, that was his words. First inauguration. All right, address. Now, what was cool about it, in another manner, was he left that up to the people, and we saw what happened shortly after that. Then he stepped in lawfully, and we know what he did with the military and the laws. And by the way, veterans out there that don't know this, and people that don't know this, foreign and domestic. Foreign was added in 1862 to our oath. It had nothing to do with going overseas or anything of that nature. It meant if you don't replicate what our foundation looks like and you look foreign to us, we will take you down. And that is what everybody's seeing, is the true draining of the swamp. I mean, it can't be any more. I told a friend this weekend, I don't really know the words for it, and that's saying a lot for a guy like me.
Well, thank you, Derek. I want to pedal back to what you first mentioned. Racism in America, by and large, had smoldered. There were pockets of it here and there, and thank goodness for that, until Barack Obama showed up, and then fired up the race card once again through his party of choice, and here we are cleaning up that slop once again. All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to stay on Kash Patel, and we are going to get into some other territory, folks. So just to let you know, we'll go back to the top of the panel with Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi. I want to talk about Kash Patel, who has stated in no unmistaken terms that arrests are coming very soon concerning the election theft and interference from 2016 forward. We hear names being dropped now like Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Strzok. Comey's an interesting discussion within, but Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Strzok, Page, and the rest of that Klan, what I call valuable low-lying fruit, as all things lead to Obama per President Trump. So would that be a fair analysis, Ricardo, sir, about the low-lying fruit becoming a narrative? I think if Kash Patel has stated in no mistaken terms they're about to be arrested, I'm going to take him on his word. How do you analyze this narrative, and will this lead to Obama?
Will it lead to Obama? Absolutely, yes, it will. And it must, because as I said before, we know that Obama wasn't some great mastermind. He was just the stooge who signed the paper. Now, that's important. It really is important, because he might have been a stooge, but he was the hand that signed the paper. So it's got to lead to him, because that'll start shattering some more of these illusions. And just people should remember the only thing they're going to lose here is something that I think it was Bruce Lee, the great martial artist, said. All you're going to lose are illusions. That's it. You're not going to lose anything else in reality. And so while that's tough for a lot of people to take, particularly what I call the yellow hats, whose whole lives revolve around their stock portfolio and their housing investments, they're going to find pain in that. But it's all a lie. But back to your point, Comey's now been actually indicted by a grand jury on 2 counts. And people will say, great, this isn't on an invitation to attend an interview. This is an actual grand jury indictment threatening to do harm to the president, and then using Twitter to put up that famous 8645 shells or stones in the sand message. And for those that aren't familiar with that, to 86 something, it means to take out. And depending on who you read, the etymology either originates because it's rhyming slang, and it sounds like nix, which is a German term meaning nothing. We got nothing in stock. Nix that customer's order, meaning there's nothing to give the customer. It's also nix, just meaning take them out in the military. 86, that one, just kill it. And the 47 obviously is a reference to Trump. So using a carriage service to communicate the threat. So these are 2 grand jury indictments that Comey is facing. This is what people have been waiting for. Now, like any good show, they're not going to roll it out too quickly. Now, they've got several episodes in several seasons that they have to fill a commercial hour with, so to speak, using the analogy of a TV show. So the rest coming, we've heard it 100 times. How many nothing burgers do you go for before you realize there's nothing there? And just when the audience is absolutely fed up, bang, out comes the arrest. And they'll forget the delay, and now they're going to enjoy the arrest. And Comey is that, as you call it, John, that low-hanging fruit that it's obvious. It's something they get their hands on. They saw Comey sweating there while he was exonerating, after listing all of Hillary Clinton's crimes with the server and the rest of it. He's sweating like a turkey that knows his Christmas dinner. So watching that bald-faced lying performance by Comey, and now the truth is coming out. This is going to give. It's not so much red meat to the crowd, but at least it's a bone with a bit of meat on it for us to chew on, to know that it is actually happening. So they're slowly feeding it out. Beginning, this is the rollout of a lot more to come, and this is the crescendo of arrests, crescendo of satisfaction that has to lead towards a genuine celebration on 4 July.
Thank you. A couple of quick follow-ups on this related subject with Ricardo. And again, we're more event-driven versus date-driven, and I understand that. So having said that, as a disclaimer, speculation in your opinion, as these low-lying fruit get processed and arrested, according to Kash Patel, soon according to Kash Patel, all roads leading to Obama, would you speculate that Obama's time comes before or after the midterms?
If I was at the planning table, I'd be saying bring it up before, because there's plenty more to come after that. But the people need a genuine, a deeply, profoundly sincere reason to celebrate, and that would be the stick in your thumb and pull out a plum. That's the juice that they're going to need. After that, the rest can roll out. That'd be my advice. Do I know what's going to happen for sure? Of course not. But I'd be certainly saying this is what you want to do, because everybody knows that Obama is the figurehead of all of this, and it's a real figurehead. And the fact that he is what he is interesting. But what's more important is the entire presidency was false. Every law is unconstitutional. It's all a lie. And the best way to assuage people's anger, I guess, is to focus all of your angst on one supervillain. We know he's not a supervillain, but he's the guy that deserves it. And so, you had a fight with your wife this morning. Well, we can celebrate because Obama's going down. Forgive me here, but it's a bit of a story. It's a bit like the Huey that went down in Vietnam. It's in a book called Chicken Hawk. It's a great read. Anyway, a Huey carrying a whole bunch of supplies went down, but they had no manifest on what was on that aircraft. So the store, the quartermaster store, basically sent out a message to all the units. Look, tell us what you had on that helo, so we can write it off, because they've got to account for all the equipment. Well, if they added up the tonnage that everyone claimed was on that aircraft, a C-17 couldn't have carried the load. So everyone's going to dump a whole bunch of their genuine anger, frustration, pain, misery that has been building up over the years, over the last many, many years. And it's very real. Family deaths, destruction of businesses, the poisoning, the sickness, the lot. The people need a point of focus to project all of that onto, and I couldn't think of a better target than Barry Soetto, because that'll clear them emotionally, and I guess clear them emotionally, mentally, even spiritually to a degree, psychologically definitely, so they can then move on after 4 July and begin the great labors of peace, as I call them, because the tribulation of war will continue, but it will appear to the target audience that the major work is done, and now we can get on and commence the great labors of peace. And as we've spoken before, focusing on health and wealth will be the two great priorities. Again, if I was at the planning table, zero tax, get them rich, because you can be more generous when you've got a pocket full of personality. Health and wealth are the two big things. Once the people get that, then you can watch after July 4. The trajectory will be so much more joyful.
Thank you. I just want a quick comment to our viewers. This isn't about Republican and Democrat going after Barry here. This isn't about certainly black and white going after Barry here. We could have the same level of discussion on the Bushes. We'll save that for another day. But one more follow-up, Ricardo, and then we'll take this dialogue through the panel. I spoke with Josh Reed, 10-year retired, 10-year Navy, and I'll be publishing that any day now. And Josh will be joining us in a future panel. Everyone on the screen has been with Josh on one program or another. Josh just yesterday came up with an analysis, and I would like to get this panel's view of it. He said he's wondering if, since Obama's a pretty big fish, I mean, the big players are behind him, but he's the big front runner fish, that it could cause a lot of problems for the country if it was shown military tribunal punishment for treason is execution, and so that he may get into a car accident or have a heart attack or go away by some other means and be eliminated that way for public consumption to avoid potential chaos. Any comments or opinions about Josh's his speculation?
Yeah,
You know?
and that speculation
Oh wait,
makes sense. That's a workable course of action if you're sitting at the planning table. But the people deserve and need to see retribution. They really do. And it's not a bloodlust. It's the acknowledgement, the public acknowledgement of a wrong done by an individual. And if he represents it all, then so be it. Now, uh, if he was taken down and the uninformed black communities across the country saw um, the first black president being, charged by old white men, yeah, I can see exactly why that would potentially cause problems. But the whole, and they're preparing before you attack a hill, you hammer it with artillery. You don't. That's why Patton was so successful as a general. Love your men and use the artillery. You don't send people in cotton shirts up against 88mm guns. You hammer the joint, and that's what the Southern Poverty Law Center issue was about. That particularly is preparing the ground for Obama to go down. Why? Because it's going to destroy the entire black-white narrative and reveal it for the nonsense that it is. And this is part of the preparation psychologically that the White Hats are placing onto the population of the US. So when Barack goes down, when Barry Soweto does go down, you're still going to have the dyed-in-the-wool white hate black, black hate white. Leave them out of it. But the majority of the country, and you need a critical mass, and that's all you need. You just need enough. You don't need everybody. Will understand this is not black-white issue. This is not Republican-Democrat issue. This is a seditious, treasonous individual that has sold everybody out, and they won't see color because, as Derek pointed out, most people don't see color. We're smart enough for that. The dumb end of the spectrum has been reminded year after year that blacks are hopeless or whites are hopeless or whatever the story is, but the majority know that's just complete nonsense. And so the Southern Poverty Law Center, why does they come out now? Prep fire on the Hill, which is taking down Barack Obama, Barry Soweto, and it's got to be done publicly. They've got to see the trial. They have to go through this whole process to rid their souls of the pain and misery that has been visited upon them by countless generations, black or white, the Bushes, the Clintons, the lot. They have to. It's got to be washed out of them, and they deserve it. They have every right to see the individuals, regardless of color, held to account publicly and executed publicly.
I agree. Thank you, sir. Same question. We're unpacking all this aspect of the low-lying fruit leading to Obama. Colonel Sellers, you care to weigh in on this?
Excuse me. Yeah, I've been as far as Comey. I mean, I'm really happy that Comey was the first visible domino to fall. Because I remember when he was testifying before Congress, I was praying then that that this ends and somebody brings this guy to justice. Him and Brennan and the whole pack of these guys that were all. I don't even look at it black, white, whatever. It's criminal. It was a criminal enterprise that was feeding on trust of the people, and they were being treasonous to that trust. So I'm just thankful to see that even the second indictment on Comey come out, and I hope he goes down in flames, and I hope Brennan is right behind him, and the whole pack of those guys. And I think it's a really good sign that this happened because I think it's showing the direction that the wind is blowing with this administration, and that maybe we'll finally get some justice done.
Thank you. Kash Patel. Kash Patel was very, very straight up. Very soon, there will be arrests. Again, events versus timing, but to satisfy the curiosity, because your opinions matter to people, what's your opinion on the low-lying fruit arrest, whether it's Brennan, Clapper, Stroke, Page, Comey, etc., pre or post midterms?
Yeah, I think it's critical because they got to. We have our side, the conservatives administration. They have to do something, and they have to do it soon because the clock is ticking, and those midterms are coming up. We need some successes before those midterms come up and they start doing debates prior to the elections and this and that. We need a record of success. in bringing all these idiots to justice. And so this is a really good sign, I believe. And the other ones need to start getting very nervous, because you're not going to be able to hide under those rocks much longer.
That's right.
And that's what's good
just,
about Kash.
follow up.
He's a bulldog.
Mhm.
Kash Patel is a bulldog, and I appreciate that. That's why I was happy to see him in there. Breath of fresh air.
I agree. I like Kash Patel, and again, as I said earlier on in the show, if he slaps the handcuffs on these people, that's one for the history books. Let me ask this: do you think I'm being a little too optimistic in that we might arrest one or two before July 4th, or is that a little bit too soon because of the grand juries and the processes that we have to go through?
I think it would be really beneficial if we arrested some meaningful targets before July 4th. It would be really beneficial. And I'm telling you, I just truthfully believe the clock is ticking, and it's a finite clock. And the sooner we get some successes and some victories under our belts, the better off we're going to be going forward. And I mean that from the standpoint of optics and what the people are seeing. And finally, maybe some justice is coming, because we've been praying for it for what, 10 years now?
Yes. Yep. That's going to be an abrupt swing of the pendulum. And boy, we've been waiting for that. Thank you, Colonel Sellers. Michael, Jacob, you want to weigh in on this? It's an important subject. We're spending time on it because this is the theft of our nation, commandeered by a sitting president, and the entire organizations that are supposed to protect this country overthrew it. That's a big issue, foreign and domestic. Michael.
Yeah, and I think that like I said earlier, we're bringing in the information, we're layering it so that some of these people can be taken down. I've had Ian Trottier, who's the author of High Stakes Treason, how John Brennan basically used American security to make money, and so he's been on 3 shows now. I'm going to bring him on again. Other CIA types I had on as well have been disclosing about Brennan. So we're laying the foundation for him to possibly be the first one. Several people have said that. I think it's very possible. We never know, because they'll reveal something, and then that's a misdirection, and then they'll snatch somebody out. So, but I think that it's very possible he may be the first one. Now, you look at Brennan, you look at what happened with Osama bin Laden. He planned that, supposedly. And then once that was revealed, after Osama bin Laden was taken out by SEAL Team 6, my old squadron did it. I was actually there. I helped find Osama bin Laden. I was, working with the doctor that helped disclose his location. So, it was very tragic what happened after that. He disclosed that SEAL Team 6 had done the mission. And I think that's kind of like one of those things that, those of us that are in, these high levels, Delta, SEAL Team 6, we don't like our stuff to be revealed. And so they revealed it. And I think that was, so he could get reelected, Obama, that is. And, there's lots of different, problems with that. We look at Obama, coming back in, doing more trauma to America, and using, the SEAL Team 6 mission to do that. Now, after Obama, he was very, very prominent when I was in the CIA. I was in Peshawar at the time. We had grown the Peshawar base. At first, it was just me and one other security officer. And then as we got closer to that time frame where Osama was going to be exposed, we grew that base to I think over 20 different security guys, and lots of CIA, people gathering information and analytical guys. And every day, Obama was on a video chat with the high level guys that were there at the place where I was. So we knew that he was involved. And then when it happened, he disappeared. Right. So he got what he wanted. and then he didn't care anymore. And our mission started to, stalemate and all kind of different things, problem areas. So these guys basically, do what they want to enrich themselves, to put themselves on pedestals so people think, very highly of them. But I can tell you from the backside, down in the trenches, uh, we were completely disgusted with Brennan, with Obama, and I'll even say that Admiral McCraven, uh, he was a great disappointment. The SEAL that was involved, SEAL Admiral was involved in that. He went after President Trump, and I've never seen any admiral, a SEAL admiral, ever do anything like that. So he, said a lot of bad things about President Trump on several occasions. And then we had Jeff Bezos give him a $50 million award for, service to humanity. So I guess that was his reward for, going after Trump. So all of these people, we're just looking at Obama, but Brennan, Comey, Bezos, Admiral McCraven, who knows how many other admirals and generals that are part of a very, very corrupt system that are going to go down. And I agree. We're going to see a lot of these people go through, military tribunals and executed.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service, Michael. I think Kash Patel is going to need a small warehouse filled with handcuffs. Derek Johnson, you care to weigh in on the low-lying fruit leading to Obama arrests? Are they really coming? Your viewpoint of potentially when?
Well, I agree. I mean, you look at our ages. I mean, I'm obviously the youngest one on the panel. I get to brag, I guess, a little bit here about something. But 250 is a big deal while we're living here. The odds that we'll see 275, 300. I mean, you don't even have to live your full life. I mean, God's in control of that. But 250 is a big deal for a constitutional republic. And this is all of President Trump's legacy. I remind people, I have the ball cap right back here, but I remind people the 45-47, that's his whole legacy. So there's the operational side that we talk about, obviously the applications of the military government, and then there's the actual what people are seeing, right? So there's the two timelines that are running. And so 2016, I've told everybody 2020 was not, this is what my books and what the whole President Trump presidency, and it's not a real presidency. It's a wartime president, supreme commander. I've told everybody 2016 was the theft. That was where the coup was tried back there. That was it. All right. And they just reran it again because why not? We have a thing called the military government. It's lawful. The Constitution supports it. And when we get done with all this, people will appreciate it. And if they don't, well, we might need to examine their heads as well when we get done with this. But Comey, I was just brought it up where people could see, but Comey's last post on X is June 2025. I mean, and so here's a guy, you can't see it through the glare, but here's a guy that's got 1.1 million followers, right? If you have 1.1 million followers and you lived in the days of Obama and Bush and back, right, that was the mudslinging days. And that was the heavy, heavy drama. That was your real Smith-Munt Act days heavily when it was really rampant. Right now, people think media is, but the media are under a wartime code. It's the 47 U.S. Code, Section 606, which is a national mercy statute power. And that's why it's such an awesome flex that President Trump, he really wouldn't even have to issue one single executive order with a national mercy because there was over 25 when he stepped into office that were open. So all he had to do was enforce the law, even if it would have been a real presidency, but it's not. So that's why you got to tie in the Executive Order 13848, September the 12th, 2018, with the national emergency and vote in it for election interference. All right, and there's a key line in it that people need to focus on. It says, although no foreign power has altered the outcome, or that little conjunction is very key, or the tabulations, all right, which is January the 6th. All right, that's what vote tabulation day is. no foreign power has altered the outcome or vote tabulation in any U.S. history election. So they're telling you right there that, hey, our enemy is within. President Trump started making those proclamations in March 2020. We've been invaded. We've been invaded. We've been invaded. November the 15th, 2022, which was the night he announced candidacy for 2024, which is all, once again, when you know this stuff, that was way too early in another manner. But that was on the anniversary of our Articles of Confederation, November the 15th, 1777. So everything President Trump's doing is showing different symbols the right way, the good way. And like today, it came out that he is related to the king. And I was trolling all the people on X going, oh, I thought he was the Antichrist. Now he's got the bloodline to the king. The bloodline to the Antichrist, according to the Bible, is not anything English related. So, all those things, it's serious because it's what they're showing people. So that executive order, September the 12th, 2018, 2 months later, the National Guard cybersecurity teams are going to the election polls. All right. Well, we also have a Title 18 code in there that says that any one of us, all of us service members, we can't get in our uniform and go down to the poll and convince you to vote, whether we're retired, whether we're active, reserve, National Guard. That's also a federal crime. So if you're at the polls, or which these guys will be in trucks and different things in different places if they were remotely close, but they would be in operative vehicles for that. But still, just for the target audience out there, they're still active at these 14 to 39 states were active, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. So the first time in U.S. history, election history, we're having the National Guard involved. And if people knew what they do, we have all the forensics. We work on analog, not digital, so we can capture any kind of adding or subtracting of votes. So why would quote unquote Joe have the National Guard at the polls in 2022 and 2024 on a President Trump executive order with a national emergency? That wouldn't make sense if President Trump is a king, a Nazi, a dictator, and all those things. That wouldn't make sense. And then also for the veterans out there, this is why I was so hard right out the gate with the veterans, is that, look, if you're going to come at me and, oh, I didn't serve long enough and I didn't do this and I didn't, well, it's going to look worse on you because I didn't serve as long as you, because quote unquote Joe does not have one single Title 10 invocation from 21 to 25. He doesn't have a Title 32 funding from 21 to 25. Everything's operating on President Trump. And then, even though this is off subject, it still ties in just the recent quote unquote shooting. The articles, mainstream articles, are talking about a line of succession. Why are we talking about a line of succession? Most people don't even know what that is. Well, the line of succession is important because quote unquote Joe never had an order of succession with the Department of War or the National Security Council, which would be chaos if he was real and he died. So when you tie all this in, the military government, and you hear President Trump say all roads lead to Obama, people have to remember as well, I think it could be something, and I'm not trying to be combative towards anybody's, analysis of what it could be, but I do agree with the July the 4th because that's a big day, and I think that we have to start making a massive turn before then. And then, but when you hear all roads lead to Obama, what if though? What if they used Obama in a different manner, where they brought him out and made him, basically have a guilty conscience, or maybe he's the one who spills all the beans, something of that manner. Because look how, if you went up to every Democrat or liberal on the street and said, pick one, you only have one, you have two options, one choice, Clinton's or Obama. Liberals would dump the Clintons so quick. They think Obama's a great speaker, a great father, a great husband, a great president. What if you flip it in another irregular manner and you make him come out, be the one that remember on the night show where he read off President Trump's tweet? He said, well, at least I'll go down as a president. And he dropped the phone like a mic drop. Well, what if they make him come out and be the one that's speaking to the world in another manner? All roads lead to Obama. I think it could be an ultimate troll move by President Trump, where it's more light. It's going to be heavy with the tribunals and that, yes, but light from the standpoint of the approach for the people as well, who, like Josh was saying, the people out there, they don't have a clue what's going on. They won't listen to some of us. So somehow they got to spin it in a way that's not so doomsday on this in the sense of getting their attention, but then the actual trials. So the Charlie Kirk thing, that is so perfect what they did with people. No one talked about the bullet. No one talked about the gore, right? They didn't even say, man, why are they showing this on TV? They've never shown this before. They're getting people ready for the quick trials that way, but they also can do it in another way of saying, all right, let's make Obama be the one spill the beans. I don't know. It could be that's where Jacob talking about the layers and the strategies and tactics, irregular warfare, unconventional. Someone could be good, bad. You're never going to know until the lead dogs tell you what it is. And I think that could be a tactic. I may be wrong.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much for that, Derek. And I just want to make we're going to talk about the Correspondents' Dinner and central casting. We're going to talk about midterms before we conclude this broadcast. And to that point, we're into the second hour. So let's unpack what we need to, and keep in mind the clock that's ticking. And thank you all very much for your time. I would like to talk about, you mentioned Kings just a moment ago. I find it interesting that the No Kings crowd didn't come out when the King showed up at the White House the other day, but that's for another day. But let's talk about fresh off the heels of Iran. We see King, and they're connected. Fresh off the heels of Iran, we see King Charles visiting the White House, which is pretty much not a common occurrence. What is the significance of this and the messaging to us? This is fresh news, just happened yesterday. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi. No kings, the king is here, the crowd isn't. What's the messaging? What is happening? And again, I tie in Iran as it relates to the king.
It's providing a very useful normalization of relations, because Trump has been such a bull in a china shop. That's the way it's sold. And all of a sudden we have the alleged British king coming in, and it's just normalization. Oh, look, things are happy and joy. You can't constantly have a show where you have high levels of drama. This was a settling moment visually for the target audience. There were some lovely moments where all the Revolutionary War soldiers in full garb as the Brits walked past. I thought that was just brilliant. But this was just a nice calming moment across all the chaos that's going on. Look, everything is being presidential. The king is here. They didn't see the odd behaviors, flapping American flags on the tarmac where the British flag hardly moved. I mean, all these little things, whether they're accidental or real, who knows, doesn't matter. It was just a calming moment for the people. Trump is fulfilling that role. It's like when Dad comes home angry, everybody waits for Dad to settle down again and grab a cup of coffee, and everybody's good again. All right, so that was the purpose of that. It also showed the king being subordinate to DJT. The king came to visit Trump. Everyone comes to visit Trump. And again, it's that subtle messaging to the target audience. The Don is the king. Whether you like it or not, he is.
Great analysis. Thank you. I want to add one thing to that I saw on social media. Some patriot pointed out, you know how you can draw on top of an image to bring attention to something. And they showed the staged photograph of the First Lady over here, the President, the King, and the Queen, I would presume. And the King had his hands behind his back. Interesting symbolism there, like his hands are tied. So we'll add that to the list of those anomalies that you've referenced, Ricardo. Thank you. Colonel Sells, you care to weigh in on this? The King's visit,
Yeah, I think
which I understand from decades since a king has visited the White House.
I think yes, and I think there's a couple of things here. I think it's for one thing, one aspect of it. I believe it's a follow up to the Queen following Trump during the capitulation tour during his visit over there. I think this is a direct follow up to the capitulation tour, that Charlie comes over and sees me over here in my house. And the other part of it is, if I'm not mistaken, soon after we started the operations in the Strait of Hormuz, UK came out against the operation and really publicly against it, that this was a mistake. The U.S. is making a mistake in the Straits, in the vicinity of Iran, and all that. And we obviously we went on and we did it anyway. Um, think about the Straits of Hormuz. Okay, uh, you've got Trump came out with maybe 3 different statements about the Straits of Hormuz, and I think he was signaling at the time. And this is over the last couple of weeks. And the one that I really liked. He goes, "Hey, we don't use the Straits of Hormuz." He goes, "Europe uses the Straits of Hormuz. They get 80% of their oil through the Straits of Hormuz. The Europeans do. Okay, this is hurting them." And this is at the same time that he's making his comments about NATO and how NATO never supports us and we pay millions and millions into NATO. I think the actions and these words, of these different conversations are all pressure on Europe to understand that we don't need you, but you need us to get this oil flowing back through here. So I think he was flagging a lot of information in some of those comments that he made. And so,
Thank you
and I guess the bottom line of it, based on those comments that he was making, I think this is pressure on the Europeans from the U.S. Hey, we're doing this. We're doing it for our own reasons, but you're going to pay for it.
Thank you for tying those nations in, Iran and Europe. That's a part of everything. Thank you for raising that to our viewers. Michael, you want to take this on, please?
Oh, this is a good one. So the city of London is being taken down, and that's been controlling Iran. It's been controlling China, both of those countries. So this is basically the takedown of both of those countries. Now, what I love also about this is that you're seeing the squeeze of the old system, which is oil, and that's going to lead to, like we're seeing from all these scientists that are disappearing, the free energy stuff that's going to come out to replace it. Mm-hmm. So the whole world is being squeezed right now, and all the deep state throughout the world is being squeezed right now. They pushed the Green New Deal, which was complete BS, and it's not working. So it was supposed to replace the oil. So now that's being exposed, and we're seeing oil is being squeezed. Of course, the United States being the number one oil producer in the world, with Russia second and Saudi Arabia third. Both of those countries combined do not produce as much oil as the United States. So we're saying we're at the lead in all of this. We're in control completely of all this. And when you look at, again, who benefits the most from this oil? Venezuela and, the Middle Eastern oil, that was China. All right. So they were China, as Trump likes to call them. That was, basically a takedown of their system as well, squeezing them, because there was all this thread about China going into Taiwan. Why would they go into Taiwan? To get all of the chips and stuff that they need for dominance in the AI world, which we cannot let them have, right? Because that will basically take over the world pretty quickly. So President Trump has been pushing for AI dominance. So this is basically taking down to China. They're not getting their cheap oil anymore. All of these countries like Venezuela and the Middle East are going to get their, especially Iran, their people are going to get the oil for, until we make the transition into free energy and so forth. They're going to continue to get their money. The people are going to get the money that they deserve from this oil, not the people at the top that were squeezing the people and destroying cultures and so forth, like we've seen all over the world. So monumental times, like all of us have been talking about for well over a year now on your program, John. So it's a fantastic time to see this get revealed and see this final destruction of not only the city of London, but also the Vatican City, where Trump came out and also went after the Pope. All right, so he's taking down those other, and he's controlling the third city, which is the Washington, D.C. So he's controlling all three of the cities that were controlling the world for a long time.
What an excellent analysis. And that's the crux of the matter in the operation, in my opinion, in Iran and Venezuela. Certainly Iran. Looks like London bridges are falling down. And to your point about Trump going after the Pope and the Vatican and DC, you're absolutely right. George Bush got it wrong. The axis of evil is London, the Vatican, and DC, and Trump's all over it. Thank you, Michael. Derek Johnson, you want to take this subject on, sir?
I mean, he's showing he's the supreme commander. The White House put out the article about the two photos that said two kings, and I love that commentary. You said that, oh, all of a sudden, where's the no kings protesters? Right. That also shows strategy. That shows this is all a military government. It's all a military operation. And Colonel Sellers and Jaco, they alluded to exactly their points about the capitulations. I mean, that's all part of it. And then I've been traveling from New York, and I'm still on the road. I haven't got to watch a lot of the footage, but I did see President Trump saluting. And if that photo was correct with the hands behind his back, well, we all know that. Well, no, not these guys. I know this because I was the enlisted guy having to salute these. So if one of these gentlemen were around me, it would be me with my hands behind my back, showing that reverence to the officers here. So it could also be that. I didn't get to see the photo, but if President Trump was saluting and the king had his hands behind his back, well, I would get chill bumps for sure if that was the imagery. I haven't seen that. But if that's the case, that would show that here's the king of England, and then also President Trump saluting. If his hands behind his back, it could also mean parade rest in another kind of manner. That would be awesome. And then also NATO. Let's remember NATO. President Trump put a post out, and he said this not too long ago, about a couple of weeks ago now. He said that a lot of nations want to join the Abraham Accords. He said, and not only the Middle East, but a lot more outside of the Middle East. What if President Trump ends NATO and the UK becomes part of the Abraham Accords? I don't know. It sounds like an ultimate President Trump card to me, and that would be the 45-47, another massive, like Jaco just said. I mean, it's biblical, it's monumental, it's historical. We're watching and living through world history.
Thank you, Derek. We've got about 30 minutes if we want to stay in the 2-hour mark to complete this show, and I thank our panel for sticking around and our audience for continuing to watch us. We're going to switch gears to the economy. Back to the top of the panel. Juan 07, our good friend, has stated we will be facing an economic extinction event, and went on to say, and I quote, "In all these things we're going to have to fight in this reset of America, the war in the financial realm is going to be the greatest of them all." He also went on to say we can expect to see 6 to 8 times more of a collapse beginning in the bond market meltdown than we saw back in the collapse of 08-09. That's an extraordinary statement. And Juan concluded by saying, and that's a conservative number. So Lieutenant Colonel Bosi, please comment on this, as well as the solutions that are in play, broadly speaking, behind the scenes, that will ultimately make us victorious in this battle for energy and currency domination, because that's what this is all about. Oh, you've got no audio, sir. You got to activate your mic. No sound. Thank you.
This is an interesting one. It's the one that's going to get everyone's attention. We know that. It goes back to, it's fascinating. It goes back to the Bible. When Christ spoke about you can only serve God or mammon, you can't serve both. And that's the actual methodology that the black hats, the cabal, have been using. You either praise our God or we'll pay you to do so. The rest of us have been doing other things, but the whole system has been designed, the controlling system of the planet is designed, and it's in the Committee of 300 book. This isn't just speculation. They've said it themselves. We don't care whether you praise our satanic God or not. We give you enough money to do what you've got to be done. And that's the mechanism by which the planet's been run. The genuine satanic evil and magic, if you want to call it that, coupled by those that didn't necessarily go in for that sort of stuff, but they'd do anything for a buck. And so when we talk financial collapse, is the average, as we say in Australia, is the average punter going to be affected? Absolutely, because we need to get their attention. Their attention has to be got, let's say. But the real collapse, and I think Juan's one on the money when he says that it's going to be a whole lot worse. Not necessarily for Jacko and Norell out there who are working 2.5 jobs, living hand to mouth to feed themselves. They'll get hit. But the collapse will be of this fraudulent system that has been propped up on the backs of working people around the globe as they work. The money gets sucked in and then it gets spent elsewhere. We know that's how it works. That's what's going to come down. Now, just so if we've got a couple of Jackos and Norells out there listening, there is a huge safety net underneath you. So everyone just relax, take a big chill pill. You're not going to be left hung out to dry, simply because if the system collapses comprehensively, resulting in collapse of supply chains and mass starvation, the black hats win, and the white hats aren't that silly. So there is a safety net. You're going to feel that gap in the pit of your stomach as you start to fall, but there's a nice comfy safety net down there. Now, what's it called? The universal income. It doesn't matter what it is, it's there in place ready to catch you. And that's why they've been talking about, say, if they're preparing psychologically the target audience for the safety net, the universal basic income has been out there for years. And I remember when it came out 5, 6, 7 years ago, they were talking about this nonsense. I'm saying, what do you mean a universal basic income? But this is stupid. It's antithetical to any decent financial theory for the well-being of a planet. You got to be self-reliant. You got to look after yourself. Got to make your own money. Be independent. Otherwise, you'll end up with these lazy people doing nothing. But that's what it was. Now, the safety net comprises, if I was going to speculate, it comprises that the wealth that has been stolen from the people will be made available to the people in a measured way, in order for the planet to continue working. Now, how does that work? Let me speculate again. Imagine if we've all been very sensible with our income and we've been living off 90% of our post-tax income, and we've been investing 10% for years, and now we've retired and we can live off the proceeds of our own investments. That's just a nice, comfortable retirement. A lot of sensible people do that and they're comfortable. A lot of people don't. But if the money's been stolen and you get access to that and you can live your life and now start doing what you want to do rather than what you have to do, all of a sudden that's part of your safety net. So you will drop, but you'll be caught because the white hats cannot afford the collapse to be complete. But let's get back to this horrendous collapse. Yes, BlackRock, State Street, all these corporations that have been the mechanism by which the planet is controlled, because they control the money. If your portfolio is heavily based on investments in those organizations, you're going to feel the pain. And even that is nothing compared to the collapse of the mechanism. That's what's going to be horrendous. The safety net is there, so just trust that that's going to happen. They're not going to explain to you exactly how it happens, but the financial architecture that pervades the entire planet, upon which the entire planet functions, that's going to go down quicker than the 9/11 towers will go down, and it'll just be as complete as that. But as we know, an alternative has been constructed. It's sitting there alongside, ready to go now, functioning in part now, as best as we can tell. So when the facade drops, the facade of BlackRock, the facade of State Street, the facade of the city, of all of that, once that collapses into a cloud of its own dust, what will be revealed will be an architecture which now meets the needs of the people. Will it be frightening? Absolutely. Will some people lose? You bet. Because as I've said before, if you've got massive investments based on the proceeds of crime, they were never yours in the first place. And so there you go. That's a quick, to leave some room for the others to comment. That's what I'd take away from that.
It's a brilliant analysis. Thank you. Quick follow-up, and we'll go to Colonel Sellers, is chaos without clarity, problems without solutions leaves you in a very uncomfortable position. Turn those channels off. What you just got is clarity in the chaos and solutions at the end. Thank you very much, Ricardo Bossi. Colonel Sellers, please. Off the heels of Juan O'Savin's comments, energy and currency domination What's your take on what's about to unfold?
Well, I'm not an economist, and I'm certainly not as eloquent as Ricardo is on this thing. Um, but I do agree. We've been living under this fake fake fraud of an economy, I guess, since what, 10
Mhm.
hundreds, 10, 1100s. The minute the minute the Khazarians figured out that they could print money and pretend that it's real and make everybody pretend that it's real and believe it's real. So we've been slaves for what, 2,000 years, slaves to the fiat dollar and the fiat money system. And I think that what's coming is, and I believe Juan's going to talk about this at some point too, is that system is just like Ricardo just said. These great big organizations that manage the theft, to include the governments who are involved in it, because they are part of the group of thieves, stealing the money from us for all those years. Hell, every one of us essentially is a millionaire by the amount of money that they've stolen from us. And if you go back through the years, I'm 70 years old. I've been paying taxes or whatever for all of but 18 of those years. And think about how much money you make in a 70-year period or 50, 60-year period, and you've given the large majority of it to the organizations and the thieving governments that are stealing it from you the whole time. So that's what needs to change. And when that does change, I think everyone's going to be better off.
Without question, we're returning this another portion of which makes
Right.
comprises our sovereignty as free beings, and those shackles are going to be coming off. Well said. Same question to Michael Jaco. Energy and currency domination, I would think, is the big story of what's really going on. Maybe the only bigger story would be, advanced AI domination. But what's your take on the economy? I know you've been interviewing Juan and some others. You're very up to speed on this. What are your views?
Yeah, the bond fraud. I went to that event in Las Vegas, and the reveals were over the top. The property taxes that we're all paying continue to go up, far past what is a normal inflation rate. The assessments are over the top. There's fraud, massive fraud within the assessment of the property taxes, property values, and that's causing a lot of people to lose their homes. And it's a runaway system that's creating more and more fraud, like everything that's being exposed. The bond fraud is over the top. It's about ready to burst, and when it bursts, we're already seeing the distribution. You see, Warren Buffett started selling his stocks over a year ago, and the Mutual of Omaha. Every time that he's done this, it's a harbinger of a major downturn. He's gone to cash more than any time in history. The overvaluations of stocks are at well above 1929 levels. So we're looking at a massive, downturn that's probably going to come 80-90% correction. I've been saying this for years. I've been saying it's going to be the home values are going to plummet. A lot of places are already seeing a 50% drop in home values throughout the United States. Not everywhere, but just wait. There'll be places, where the overvaluation is like we saw in 2008, 2009. The plummeting of prices that happened during that time frame is going to happen again, but on a more massive level. Now, will there be distribution to the American people? I think that's a high possibility. And we've seen the Vatican gold come back to the United States on a massive level, major amounts of gold. Same thing from the Philippines. We're seeing a lot of this gold come back to the United States. Why? And it's going to be, the new Treasury note is going to be backed by gold and silver, probably. Is there going to be a way to move money around once everything freezes? I believe so. And we've talked about the energy, the free energy, and movement. Uh, the airlines right now, they've been lying to us for a long time about aircraft. If you put the amount of fuel in the wings of an aircraft, it would be like 3 tankers full stacked on those wings. So uh, the energy that's in the air, how the planes fly, we've been lied to about all that information. So a lot of the stuff that we've been lied to about energy and so forth are going to be revealed, and that's going to make things a lot easier going forward for a lot of people. Hydrogen energy will be available to probably every home, and very safe, very effective. And some of these, hydrogen energies or a nuclear battery, which will last 10,000 years. These technologies are already available to us, and they've been hidden
Mhm.
from us for quite some time. So the energy obviously is going to make a massive difference. That's a huge burden on a lot of the world's economies. Businesses can't. I was in Pakistan, and those in Pakistan they had like 6 hours of electricity and 6 hours off, and then 6 hours back on. So businesses were
Right.
hammered by that. Think of the productivity loss that was happening during those time
Oh,
frames. It's
yeah.
unbelievable. That could possibly happen, and maybe it's going to start happening very soon in a lot of areas because we were seeing, the oil and so forth not going out. So lots of things will be revealed. I think that we're going to be in an area where free energies are going to come through. They've been hidden. The people that had those free energies were killed off, and once it's safe for people to reveal those energies, those technologies, they'll just come out on a massive scale. And the amount of money that's out there already that's been hidden from us, we're all bonded. We're all worth millions upon millions and millions of dollars. We're going to get that. I think so. So I think there'll be a
Yes.
jubilee, and then a lot of this money is going to come back to us.
Great information. Thank you, Michael. And help is on the way, folks. Uh, be prayerful, plan and prepare, and be patient.
Yeah.
Derek Johnson.
I'm like Colonel Sellers. I'm not an economist. I mean, I do have my master's in business, but just because there's so many frauds out there that like to take my face, I try to steer away from the deep financials. But I do have a little bit. I mean, let's just remember again who's in control. President Trump. President Trump, one of the first things that he ever said in 2017 was follow the money, because as we know, that is what rules the world. And it's been ruling it quite a while. We know about the 1870s. President Trump specifically said from the 1870s to 1913, our nation had more money than we knew what to do with. Well, the deep state knew what to do with it, as we know. And then we have the, Bretton Woods. I mean, then it goes up to the Unified Budget Act, like my friend said out in Colorado, that there's one of those fundamental things that changed America, leaving the gold standard. That's when we really started getting deeper and deeper. The inflation, just deep digging those holes. But I'd like to add too, it's like look at Liberation Day. When President Trump added 45-47 on this ball cap, it was April the 2nd. I had signed the contract to write those books 43 days before that with him at Trump International when he still had the 45 regular on his ball cap. April the 2nd in our United States history is the coinage act of the gold and the silver, April the 2nd, 1792. So there's no coincidences. And then Texas being the first state to bring it to legislation for the gold standard. We all know what's going on in Texas. And then the tariffs. How come, quote unquote, Joe, a presidential authority, could not terminate tariffs that were put into place January 23rd, 2018, from 21 to 25, but more specifically 21 to 23, when they displayed to the target audience that, quote unquote, Joe had a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate, but couldn't terminate anything from President Trump from 2017 to 2021. So the tariffs, that is a national security for a wartime president as we just got the droppage again from Jesse Waters, which we're not trying to give too much praise to them, but then again, at the same time, it's great for droppage. A national security measure for hostilities. And again, I'll remind people this book right here, it'll tell you right in here that a president can most certainly declare war, and it says obligation and duties when there's hostilities threatening our land. And what better person than a man who was not a general, he was not an admiral, he was not in the military, but he also has never been a politician. And that's all I have to say about that.
Great stuff. Thank you, Derek. And thank you for the clarification on April 2nd. I was always wondering why that date became a narrative, and you've just laid that down, at least for me and perhaps other listeners. Thank you very much. We've got 2 more topics to wrap up our defense panel with. Let's talk about elections from a different perspective. We talked about the theft of it. Now we have President Donald Trump stated this, and I quote, "America's elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughing stock all over the world. We are either going to fix them or we won't have a country any longer. I'm asking all Republicans to fight for the following. Save America Act. Number 1, all voters must show voter ID. Number 2, all voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote." What a concept. Number 3, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. So, my question to the panel, back to Ricardo Bossi, is if the act does not pass, and it doesn't look like it's going to in my crystal ball, but if the act does not pass, President has pretty much told us, and Juan O'Savin has certainly delivered this message, that he may very well declare a national declaration of emergency for elections. How do you see it playing out? And I've got a follow-up, but let's stop there. How do you see that playing out? The general election's a big deal. I mean, the midterms coming up is a big deal.
Yeah, very much so. It's huge. This is going to be a really clever one. I can't wait to see how it's played out, because I can see, as a good plans officer, you get to spot very quickly 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe workable options. I had a commanding officer once, and I thought I could guess the options available, and invariably, if I came up with 2, he'd come up with 3. If I came up with 3, he'd come up with 4. It's a great game to play. It's a really interesting challenge. Here's the issue. Is it possible that there will be no elections this year? And Derek will give you a chapter and verse on this, but I think the answer is absolutely yes. There doesn't have to be a series of midterms. Yet, they're going to hang the midterms out for the people to pay attention to, and so we're going to focus on the midterms. Now, what's going to happen? Let's say the elections go ahead. What's going to happen before that? Well, there's all the sanitization of the electoral roll, for example, and we have exactly the same problems here in Australia as you do. Elections problems are not just the United States. The world is suffering from corrupted electoral rolls, corrupted electoral officials, corrupted counting systems, you name it. And we've contested 6 elections here in Australia, state and federal, and we have prima facie evidence of it. We have pictures, we have testimony, we have everything about the level of corruption. So it's not just the US issue. So this is a global issue. Everyone should be paying attention to it. Having said that, you've got to clear the rolls, you've got to clear the officials. You've also got to clean up the parties, because everything's got to come down. This party system must come down. Trump's actually said this. The party system must come down. And people say, well, how do you have an election without a party? Well, that's easy. The philosophy of the nation should not be up for grabs. You shouldn't have people coming into your country saying, well, we don't like your constitutional republic. We'd rather have a theocracy. We'd rather have a democracy where it's the tyranny of the mob. That shouldn't be up for grabs. What the country is based upon, the identity of the country, of the nation state. The nation is the people. The state is the legal and political apparatus that functions to control it. But the nation state, this should be not up for grabs. You shouldn't have a party that's for concepts that are antithetical to the founding of your nation. This is not a matter of the closing down of ideas. The challenge is always in the method. We agree what we want to become. Now, there are different ways to do it. Let's talk about the different ways of achieving this one goal. Now, your country set the example for the rest of the planet. as Thomas Paine said, you lit a spark, and this fire is traveling across the planet and lighting the fires of liberty around the world. The American Revolutionary Army knew what it was fighting for. The founding fathers knew what they were fighting for. They wanted to create something special. That wasn't up for grabs. Now, once again, what is up for grabs is the best way to go about it, and that's fine. But for my money, this election coming up, if it occurs, it requires the destruction of the party political system, unless there's maybe for some reason the need to have this transitional process. But having begun the dismantling of the corrupted system, and your politics and our politics are equally corrupted and equally bad, to slow down that, to my mind, would be a false step. So the midterms, that's something to focus on. It's a bit like the July 4, it's something to focus on. The midterms, a lot can happen between now and then. But apart from just the rules of elections, but the actual whole system, like the financial system, it's all got to come down. And Australia One, we've actually devised our way of doing it in terms of how we run this country. If we ever have the privilege of having a say-so, we come up with options to make sure that freedom of speech and all the right to self-defense, the right to be free from unfair search and seizures, and all those things that you take for granted that we do not have in Australia at all. Allegedly, it's implied, but it's not. But all of these things have to be made available to the people, but in a way that the electors are responded to directly by their representatives. No political parties to intervene. This is the major problem with the party. You've got the elector, you've got the representative, and you've got this mechanism in between the two. That's where the problem lies. That's why parties have to go. The Republicans have to come down as hard as the Democrats, because the Republicans are just as corrupt as the Democrats. I know people don't want to hear it, but hey, tough. Welcome to the world of the uni party. We've got the two sides that the cabal controls, and they have a fight. Now, the fight between those two sides, and it doesn't matter whether it's a husband and wife or China and the United States or two political parties, it's vicious. They are allowed to discuss viciously a very small number of issues. It's called the Overton window. This is what you can talk about. Go hard at it, but you can't talk about anything else. Outside the Overton window, can't touch it. That's how we know we're being controlled. That's got to go. Everything has to be up for grabs. But prior to the midterms, again, if I was sitting at the planning table, I'd be enunciating very clearly exactly what it is the hell we're trying to create. What are we voting for? Case in point, tonight, I start the first of a 3-month course, effectively. It's an educative process where we'll be examining what it is that we want to create as an organization, as a national movement, Australia One. We're not saying that we're doing this for the country on our own and in imposing upon them. I am going to take the entire A1 supporter group through this process. There'll be an hour's program. We talk about the issue, and then I present on the issue. Then the second hour is discussion that takes place privately between us about what we think about it. So there's an educative process. It's going to take about 3 months, and it's quite simple. I've already described the end state we want for the country: a moral, sovereign, self-reliant Western Christian constitutional republic, which is economically powerful, militarily intimidating, politically free, culturally vibrant, socially cohesive. That's a to-do list. It's not a marketing statement. Now, what are the drivers? And excuse me for taking too much time here, but this is critical if you understand elections now and in the future. What are the drivers? Well, the drivers are this. We view Australia, we have an image of this country in the future, and it's laughable to most because we're just a carbuncle on the arse end of the world, if you want to be honest about our role in history thus far, apart from the soldiers that fought good fights on behalf of other people. But here's what we want this country to be. We want this to be an Indo-Pacific hegemony, which means that we can influence exactly what's going on in our sector of the world and be the best possible partner the United States has ever had, in a real sense, not just a flag in the sand, but actually turn up with a couple of carrier battle groups if we need to. We're going to be the best ally you've ever had. So we want to be an Indo-Pacific hegemony, so we can help the United States do what it does in this end of the world. Secondly, we want to be a great power. Well, what does that mean? That means that we can influence the normatives rules of the region. by our influence, by our diplomacy. So genuinely powerful. Now, how do we do all of that? So they're the two drivers. So we've got this end state. There are two drivers. The third driver is this. We want to retain our identity as a Christian, Western, Anglophone constitutional republic. Now that Christian, Western, Anglophone, this is very specific stuff. These are the drivers. Now, what do you do with this ambition for this country called Australia? You've got the end state, you've got the drivers, and now you apply the elements of national power. Now, if you look up elements of national power, you'll get diplomacy, information, military, and technology, and a few other bits. It's tactics for tiny tots because they don't actually want you to think about it. I've done my own analysis and I've broken it down into 19 separate elements of national power. Those things that a nation state can use to achieve what it wants to achieve. And I've grouped them up into tangible, intangible, and hybrids. These are the three categories of national power. And again, forgive me for drifting on, but this is important for the planet to understand, because every man, woman out there has to understand that the future of their country is in their hands. They have to understand this stuff, lest they be confused again by some fast-talking salesman, slap you on the back, shake your hand, and give me a call, I'll cut you a deal sometime politician. That's dead. And so you've got the elements of national power, and I won't go through them all because there's many of them. It's geography, it's technology, it's the population, the morale, the national character. It's brilliant. Watch tonight. Get online every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can watch the show. Now, we're going to take all of those elements of national power and examine them through the prism of the end state we want to create and the drivers that are pushing us forward. Now, we take geography and say, right, we want this end state, moral, sovereign, self-reliant, etc. We want to become a Indo-Pacific hegemony. We want to be a great power, and we want to make sure that we retain our identity. Now, what do we do in terms of our geography to achieve that? Next, we go through the next one and the next one, and one by one, we end up with a description of how we want to live our lives. Now, why is that important? It's critical, because this is how you, the Americans, came up with your Constitution. Thomas Paine said this in his quote, and I can't remember it exactly, but it was along the lines of, by pursuing our individual interests, we determined how we wanted to live, and then from that we derived the rules by which the country should be governed. Now, this is inductive reasoning as opposed to deductive. What does that mean? And it's important to understand. Deductive reasoning says you start with some principles and you can derive from that rules for living. Well, unfortunately, none of us are God and we can't come up with the perfect rules. So what do? And this goes back to Aristotle. We live our life. We decide how we wish to live our life. And this is key. How do I want to live? Do I want my stuff stolen? No. Okay. Do I want to be told to shut up by my neighbor because he doesn't like what I'm saying? No. And so we start to design this individual life. And this is exactly how the US became the US. It was brilliant. Accidental, but brilliant. So you had state colonies that lived their lives the way they wanted to live. And then they were compelled to come together to create a nation. And then they fought tooth and nail for how they wanted their world to live. And they feared this federal government that was going to usurp the rights that they had fought for, or they derived from how they individually wanted to live, and from that, the rules. That's why the New Englanders and the southern states had great problems, because the New Englanders wanted to live a certain way and the southern states wanted to live a different way, and there was a tension between the two. But this inductive reasoning, that let's pursue our individual interests first, and from that we can derive the overarching philosophies by which we can then set rules. So by taking the Australia One organisation through this process, where we will describe in detail through every element and sub-element of national power, what it is we want from that. What can we do with that element of national power? This is key. What can we do with that the element of national power that pursues the end state and meets the needs of the drivers? And what we end up with is a series of policy approaches, policy objectives. Now, when you then cobble those policy objectives together, and then you can examine that and write a constitution that protects everything that we want to do. It protects the way we wish to live. And this inductive process then becomes a constitution, and the constitution will now set the rules of the game. And so people can't come in and say, well, no, that's called blasphemy and you can't talk about that. Go fuck yourself. This is Australia. We believe in free speech. You can say what you like, and if you're offended, tough. And it's constitutional law. You can't change it unless you change the constitution, and that's going to be bloody hard to do, as it should be. So, again, thank you for indulging me, John. I know I've probably burned up more time than you wanted. But if I can leave one thing with the people of the planet today, this is it. We're starting this process in Australia. I've designed it myself. I've come up with the definitions myself. Am I right? No, but I'm just starting the discussion. Now, what we hope is others will come up and challenge us, because steel sharpens steel. So we've got to start with something. Now, are we going to end up with a constitutional republic of Australia? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Going through the process of designing it and becoming informed and intelligently capable of contributing to discussion, that's the foundation of the freedom of this country going into the future, regardless of what happens. Now, personally, I'd love a constitutional republic. Is it going to happen? I don't know. It's not going to happen next week because we can't do it. You've heard me say that 100 times. Is it going to happen in 10, 20, 50 years? Maybe. I'll be long dead. No, actually, no. I'm going to hang around for another 100. Medbeds, I'm going to make sure this job gets done. I don't trust anybody else to finish the job. But you get my drift
I
here.
like the way that sounds.
We've got to start.
Yes.
Yep. We've got to start the process. We've got to get people educated and informed. And I'll just finish on this. How many times have you heard, I hate politics and I hate politicians? Well, congratulations, you've consigned yourself to a life of slavery, because it is the most consequential responsibility you have as an adult in a free world to decide the functions of the state. That's all politics is. The exercise of power on behalf of the nation, which is the people. So, ladies and gentlemen, learn to love politics, learn to love politicians, because you are one, whether you know it or not. It's on you to do the job. So I'm sorry, that was a very long discussion, and thank you for indulging me. But of all the things I've probably said on all the shows I've done with you, John, this is probably the most important for the future of the country. And we're driving this forward in Australia. And if people want to follow us or not, that's up to them. But it certainly behoves every man and woman out there that wants to live a free life in their own country to get this process started in your own life, in your own country. And then once you have an informed and educated and morally courageous people, to paraphrase your founding fathers, then we have a chance of actually winning this war.
The deep breadth of knowledge and brilliance of Ricardo Bossi. Thank you, sir. How can people all around this world, and particularly our friends in Australia, follow you and your work?
As I said, it started, we're recording this today. Today's Wednesday, the 29th. The first episode starts tonight, and it's called Foundations. It's on at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sydney time. That'll be up every Wednesday for the next, in fact, as I developed this program, it extends. So initially it was a 10-part series, and now we're up to potentially 12. But the development occurs as we go. But certainly every night, starting from Wednesday at 1900 hours, 7 p.m. Sydney time, watch it. There'll be an hour's. It's a bit like university. You got an hour's instruction from the lecturer, and then we have a tutorial after. The second hour is only open to A1 people by invitation. We'll have an hour's tutorial effectively. They have a week to think about it, and then next Wednesday we have the second episode, and then the first episode next week is geography. I'm starting with the tangibles. It's easier for people to understand tangible things like geography, proximity to. Anyway, you get my drift. So yeah, every night, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock Sydney time, plug in for 1 hour's show. And please, ladies and gentlemen, go to our website, copy everything you want. We're all a bunch of volunteers. None of us are paid for this, but this is how we're going to save our country. And please take everything you want from our website. Take everything that we produce on our shows, including particularly this series called The Rebirth of a Great Nation. Take that and use it for yourselves, and start educating your people.
Thank you. And to our viewers, jmcbroadcasting.com, upper left on the navigation bar, the word contributors, all of the panel speakers and others, biographies, and links to their platforms and world is there. Please do follow everyone. Thank you, Ricardo Bossi. A couple of quick comments. Parties have to go. I like that. And 72 nations, we've come to learn, have had their elections manipulated, quite frankly, stolen. And we're going to get ours right. And then we're going to help the rest of the world get theirs right. And so is Ricardo Bossi. Thank you for that. And I can't wait to get to Derek to comment on something you mentioned a moment ago, Ricardo, that being, will we even vote come the general election? I'd love to hear what Derek has to say. And we're going to go to Colonel Sells. And Colonel Sells, did I abruptly interrupt you before or not allow you to finish? If so, I apologize.
No, you didn't. It's
Okay.
fine. Listening to the way Ricardo just described that to me, it was almost like a flashback to 1775 and the group of people that were putting us together as a country. That's exactly the way I see it. And that was before we created our own political class of career politicians that basically destroyed everything that was it was meant to stand for, that the country was meant to stand for, which is what we have to get back to. And I think back in 24, just 2 years ago, the people actually put their foot down and said what they wanted more than any time in my lifetime, at least that I've seen. And they wanted to be away from the bullshit, have a good man in office who had common sense, not a politician, not a politician. And they answered the call. And he won in a landslide. And the Democrats, and I hate to use Democrat and Republican, the ones that were pissed off that the people voice won that election in 24 have been working from the day of that election, the day after that election, to make sure that it doesn't go our way again this time. And yet you know that they're busting their ass trying to make sure that the people's voice isn't heard in this next election. If we can't guarantee the election integrity in these midterms, then I fully believe we should not have these elections, because until we can guarantee it, and it's going to probably take a census, and it's going to have to be an honest census where illegals are not counted. This is a big deal, and if we can't get that done, what's the point? We've given it away. So yeah, my bottom line is I would rather not have an election this fall if we can't guarantee that it's going to be at least mostly honest.
You're right, and hook, line, and sinker with our commander in chief and president from the post I read kicking this question off. We don't have a country without free and fair elections. So you
Agreed.
absolutely, Michael Jaco. Let's take this topic on. How do you see it potentially playing out if the SAVE Act doesn't pass? Will it be a national emergency? What's your view on should we or should we not even vote if we can't get it right?
Yeah, the SAVE Act is a good indicator of what's going to happen. Like you said at the beginning of the show in your commentary, that both parties are going to go bye-bye. So 80% of Americans are saying we want this, and they can't get it passed. They're useless. They're useless to America, and they have to go. So whether all of them get voted out in another election or what happens, I agree with Lieutenant Colonel Sellers that we should not have an election unless it can be absolutely guaranteed. Now, if we were to have an election, unfortunately, we would see an uprising like we have never seen before in this country. So we cannot have an election that's compromised, which I think at this point it's going to be. So we have to have some kind of massive, push back on this fraud that's been. We're exposing it throughout, the government and all areas in the press and so forth. The enemy of the people, like Donald Trump has been saying, is the Democrat Party. He says the enemy of the people, not the enemy, but the I can't remember what he said about the press, but he said close to that, the enemy of the people is the press too. So we're going to see both of those, get reformed. I mean, if people are watching us, which they're doing on more and more uh, basis. You're getting great numbers, John. Uh, this is the press. We've seen the press in a lot of different areas have been compromised by a lot of people that claim to be MAGA, and now they're being exposed. So we'll see a huge pushback on a lot of this stuff. So press, being reformed, political parties being obliterated, completely removed, and something better in its place, where everyone, has opportunity to run for office. That's the way it should be. If you have a good stance, you have good information, you should, be allowed to, go to the top. Whereas now, if you don't have, people in your back pocket that are funding you and making sure that you get in there, you're selected, not elected, then we're never going to see this country go further. And we have to set the example, like Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi was saying. We're going to see America get it right and then help the world. But Australia may be the one that does it. Who knows? All right, set the example. So I think this will happen in a lot of different countries. We'll start to help each other out. But there is absolutely no way that this is going to have. We're going to have an election in the midterms if it's not. We don't see absolute proof that it's not going to be compromised.
Music to my ears. Thank you, Michael. And you had mentioned about our traffic and such. I'll state this here and now. First off, thank you to my core team of 6, total team of 10 that helps us get our content out. And thanks to you, all you gentlemen, and all the other contributors and guests that I interview on our platform. We have third-party analytics fresh from last month. We've catapulted now to 14 million collective views a month for our content, over 200,000 followers on our collective platform, social platforms, and over 300,000 monthly visits to our site. And I thank you, gentlemen, and I thank everyone listening for sharing the truth as these gentlemen and we know it to be, because the truth will set us free. Thank you all very much. Derek, if you wouldn't mind, your views on on Will We Vote, National Emergency Act. What's your take on this? And then we're going to close out with central casting and the correspondent dinner.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank Lieutenant Colonel Bosi for dropping the F-bomb there, because I go across the country and people are like, man, can you tone it down just a little bit? And I'm like, actually, I can't. And I just told someone yesterday that if any of these guys right here, and I say guys reluctantly, look, I have so much admiration for all these. Of course, I've been in person with Jaco a lot and Colonel Sellers, and looking forward to the day with Lieutenant Colonel Bosi. But I just told someone literally yesterday that any one of these gentlemen right here were to get called back into a command, I'll be the first one that they'd say, hey, run through this brick wall. I'm probably going to try it. So, so I appreciate that. But the first thing I tell people is like, look, the military government is an application. It's not a philosophy. It's not an ideology. So that is absolutely a fact what's going on right now, military government. All right. So the 2018 executive order with the national emergency by President Trump for election interference, it is still open and active. Now, what gives you that? I don't like the word hope, because we all know what that hopium word means, but what shows the application of it is the fact that if the target audience thinks and thought that quote unquote Joe Biden was real from 21 to 2025, then by integrity purposes, if you're going to be against something, then you need to be against it. But you need to know why you're against it, and you need to know all the laws and orders of that. Because an executive order with a national emergency for election interference is a big deal because of the enforcement of that. And that's your National Guard at the polls 2018, 2020, 22, and 2024. And so why else would they be there in 22 and 24? So they showed these visuals to people. Now that's where people will have to go absolutely study, put everything else aside for a moment, and study what is a military government, what is a military occupation, what is a military operation, government in exile, shadow government, puppet government, etc. Because that's all been confirmed by President Trump, validated. October 2024, 9 days before the election, he said, we are an occupied country. We will soon no longer be an occupied country. The Great Liberation begins in 9 days, which would have been November the 5th, 2024. He said the Great Restoration begins January the 20th. Occupied territory is the actual proper term for it in the Law of War Manual. And then restoration, those are nothing but Law of War Manual terms and the law of land warfare. Now, the law of war supersedes the Constitution, the law of the land. And this is written and it's supported by the Constitution. And it goes back to what Colonel Sellers was saying there, and I get chill bumps every time I think about it, about our founders, though. And then Lieutenant Colonel Bosey mentioned it too about our founders. But 29 of 30 primary founders of the United States of America were military men. So when you go to look at Thomas Jefferson, you look at James Madison, you look at Alexander Hamilton, and you look at John Jay, four men wrote our whole premises that we're standing on right now. Those four men wrote the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and the Bill of Rights. All right, and you got to go get in their mindset. You got to get in their philosophies, like the Federalist Papers. Those were promotion papers of the Constitution. And that's what they sent around to people, saying, hey, this is why you should adopt the Constitution. And this is why I tell people, don't use the Constitution as your crutch, because if I'm going to be slang, I can whoop your ass with the Constitution. It's a prescription. It's when people go read the Constitution, it's just a prescription. It says Congress will do this and Congress will do that and this will do that. It's the prescription. All right, Abraham Lincoln said specifically the Declaration is way more important than the Constitution, because the Declaration is what tells us, hey, when a long train of abuses, it becomes destructive of these ends, and then it tells us it's to throw off such government, to reset it. Well, then President Trump, November the 8th, 2016, I took that photo, 4:56 a.m. Central Standard Time. Him beside Putin, it says reset with single quotes. See, that's where law comes in. Law is a written language, right? And so grammar, punctuation, colon, semicolon, single quotations, double quotations, all these things matter. Why was reset put in single quotations? That means to focus on that word. That's an emphasis. Why was the word reset way back then? On the night that President Trump won and shocked the whole world back then, they had no idea there was an operation about to take place. That's when the operation took place. That's when the military took over, all right, lawfully by the military government that I'm showing there. So when you look at Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution, it says specifically a president to serve 4 years in a term. It never specified how many terms. And Alexander Hamilton and James Madison more specifically being the sole author of the Constitution and the sole author of the Bill of Rights, James Madison and Alexander Hamilton said that a president should serve as a king. Now, they specify back then the difference in a monarchy king and then a republic. They said specifically that as long as the people wanted to vote in the president, that should be power to the people. And see, when they set up our foundation and they set up our three branches of government, they set those co-equal to each other, meaning the legislative branch and the executive and the judicial are all equal. So if one got out of balance, then the other two would balance out the one, or if two got out of balance, the other one should be heavily. They're co-equal, all right, and they're separate. Well, we the people, we vote in the legislative branch. We vote in the executive branch. The executive nominates the judicial. The Senate confirms the judicial. All right, so when the judicial is not doing the power of the people, the will of the people, all right, what the president is doing that the people voted in and the people voted in that Congress, when the judiciary is not doing the power and the will of the people, that is Marbury versus Madison, 1803. It means it's null and void. The judiciary is not supposed to overrule any of that. So see, these elections that we're talking about, now all this is going to happen. This is President Trump's legacy. Now, Every bit of it's his legacy. But this is one of his key fundamental policies. This is his key thing because, as he says, if we don't fix this, then we don't have a country. Now, that's for the target audience. That's not for people who are following here and all those wonderful viewers that you have. That's for the target audience. But the awake people, they should already know that portion right there. So, will we not? The military government is the application right now. And until we see the laws change around that, we're in a partial continuity government. We're in a partial military government because the day before President Trump took the oath, January 20th, 2025, quote unquote Joe on paper, it was shown a partial revocation of the Executive Order 13961, which was the continuity of government. All right. And this has all been validated. But why would quote unquote Joe wait to the last 24-hour day of a presidency to partially revoke a continuity government? That wouldn't make sense. All right. Now, follow up President Trump, December the 2nd, 2025, just this past December. He put out the post. He said, all executive actions by Joe Biden are hereby terminated. But he went on to specify a Latin term in no legal effect. In Latin, that means void ab initio. That means never existed. All right. So there's your Marbury versus Madison in a whole other kind of context. That's the application of the military government. So, what everybody's watching, I think that's why they have to use something like the emergency alert system, but in a good manner. Look, people are not going to react to nuclear. They may react to financial, but I don't know. That's why I don't ever comment on that. But I think if you use the emergency alert somehow in a unique kind of strategy way, strategic, tactical, with the irregular, unconventional warfare, and then you bring in all these characters, which is going to channel into the next segment really well, the central casting. I was telling a friend today that when you have so many players that are playing this game theory, right, to take down the swamp all over the world, not just the United States of America, when you have this, there's so many athletes, there's so many actors and actresses and military and secret military and people, like me getting called back in my little spot that I got to do and be a part of this, and Jaco, everybody here. Like, no one's going to be able to overshadow anybody. There's so many people involved in this operation that it's not going to be one of those things where it's only a few people and everybody's getting credit for it. There's going to be so many people involved. And then the target audience out there, people like all of us here, right now, I tend to do like Lieutenant Colonel Bosey when I'm out, because I'm trying to get people's attention, because we're those people trying to say, look, quit the fear porn and quit doing this and quit fearful. Don't be fearful. Like if most of them claim to be Christians, I'm like, did you not pay attention to Jesus Christ in the boat? Right? All the disciples had already witnessed everything that Christ had already done, healing, raising the dead. And they're sitting on the boat and the wind starts hailing and a little lightning, a little wind, and you're sitting there with Jesus Christ, the healer, and they're like, oh, we're scared. And he's like, I can imagine being like, excuse me, do you know who I am? President Trump just said this last week. He said, if you're not going to brag on me, I'll brag on myself, right? Well, somebody has to be that says, hey, I know what's going on. This is what's going on. Stop focusing on all this bull crap. All right. A military government is an application. And I can absolutely 100% prove we're in that. And President Trump validates it. September 2025, sitting with the Turkish president. He said, while I was in exile, he remained my friend. He said exile 3 times. And he paused while I was in exile. So he puts emphasis on that. And that's the thing that we talk about, paying attention to detail. And it's the little things that always add up. And do I think that there's going to be elections? I think that we can't play game theory forever. No. So there has to be a close. And then also with the July the 4th being that's a monumental, big, huge day. And I think by the time we get there, when we make that turn, we got to be making a turn for that golden age heavy. But to the, everybody here talking about the midterms, they're big to the people, but this is a military government. And so everything shows that when you look at those founders and you look at what the military government was, all right, and I can absolutely prove that President Trump is running the military government, that should answer the legacy that, yes, there's going to be absolute answers for that. And I don't think, like, I'm just like Lieutenant Colonel Mosey. It's not a Republican Democrat. The Republicans is just as bad. The whole thing's been a corrupt system. So we have to take that down, and then we got to get the power back to the people. And I think that that's where we start the educational processes. I really think that when President Trump says all the athletes and all these competitions, we're going to be in the communities, I think it's going to be a massive ground operation. He said we're going to defund schools. I don't think that is as dictatorship as what people out there hear it. I think it's going to be more involved, the one-on-one, JACO, Lieutenant Colonel, all of us. I think that all of us will be on the ground doing these things and helping people, because that's what we do. That's what we've been put here for. And so I don't know. I don't like making predictions because I'm someone that says, look, when you know what the commander's running, when you know what he's running, it's a day by day, and what it's going to be is going to be. And I know people hate to hear that, but it comes out day by day what it's going to be. And I like President Trump for them to get the credit as it comes, right?
Great education on our founding documents and how all that, how important that is, and the comparisons of the times then to what we're dealing with now. And thank you for all the education and for your views on that, Derek. And also, one quick comment. I agree with you. I believe that restoring free and fair elections here in America, trickling down throughout the rest of the world, will become President Trump's legacy, in addition to restoring sound money. So thank you all very much. We're going to run a clip right now of President Donald J. Trump talking about two words, central casting, and then we'll close out with brief comments on the recent correspondent dinner. Run the clip.
I was the perfect person. I was like central casting.
Central, hey, you know what? And he's central casting. Look at that guy, central casting.
And these are central casting. If I'm doing a movie, I pick you, General.
Central casting.
Very impressive. Oh, you're central casting. Look at this guy. This man's central casting. I watch him all the time. Central casting. He's a real talent, a real guy, and he is central casting. Do we agree? Central casting.
They're central casting, the red suspenders, handsome, beautiful, smart. You couldn't get better central casting.
He is great in every way, and he's central casting. I mean, this is a man that was born for the position.
No, he was central casting like the perfect Supreme Court judge. These guys are central casting. There's nobody in Hollywood that looks like these people. And they're central casting. I've never seen a group of people like this. Everyone's in perfect shape. My friend, central casting. I always call him central casting. Boy, is that central casting? Let's say it. Does he look like central casting? You look like Tom Cruise, but maybe better. The intellect is extraordinary, and the man is extraordinary. He's central casting. I assume you like these people. I assume it's central casting, right, boss?
Is this central casting? This is what we want. This is a great, brilliant man. Looks like, I don't know, very tough. Central casting. When you talk about central casting,
This guy's out of central casting. I'm telling you, there's nobody in Hollywood that can look like this guy.
Yeah, these guys are central casting, like from a movie. Central casting. You can't cast it. You don't have anybody in Hollywood that looks like these guys. And a great looking central casting, and we have great generals, a great central casting general. Let's look at them.
Ne kadar güzel insanlar
Central casting.
onlarla ilişki kurmak ne kadar.
he's like central casting for ownership of a hotel.
That clip actually goes on and on and on, but I think you get the message. And I want to remind our viewers, about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, President Trump published on the Truth Social X platforms introducing Kevin Warsh to replace Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. And in that post, he said, you're going to love everything about this gentleman. He's going to do a great job. He's central casting. So back to the top of the panel, please limit your brief closing comments on the Correspondents' Dinner, and we'll conclude our broadcast. And thank you all very much. Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, let's briefly discuss this Correspondents' Dinner event. And I'll remind our viewers, Q said you're watching a movie. So what are your views, Ricardo, of what the world witnessed just a few days ago in what is being called the third assassination attempt on President Donald J. Trump?
Yeah, the point of attack here was the mainstream media. That's why it was this event occurred at the Correspondents' Dinner. Pete Hegseth immediately jumped up and shoved a finger in the face of the media saying, "You have created this situation." Now, we know it was a show. That's not the point. The fact that it was fabricated, that's not the issue. This is now the white hats putting the mainstream media squarely into their crosshairs. And watch what happens next with the media. There'll be my prediction here is that, and I'm like Derek, I don't like making them, although we have to speculate sometimes. My guess is the media is going to come under the gun very, very heavily.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Sellers, final comments on the broadcast concerning the correspondence dinner.
I think what Ricardo said, I think there's on it being a fabrication. I think there's some truth to that. If you go back, he's had 3 supposedly assassination attempts within the last 2 years. I was reading a comment from General Flynn today, and his question is a valid question. Nobody from any of those assassination attempts, no senior leadership person in a key leadership position that was overseeing any of those 3 events has ever been identified or fired. And that leads me to believe that there is some credence to the idea that it's a fabrication for a specific purpose. And I love the whole idea that happened at the correspondence dinner, because boy, I mean, what a I don't want to say cesspool, but what a pool of questionable individuals for an event, for something like that to happen at that event. And it definitely opened the eyes of people, and people are questioning it. So when you link all those 3 events together, find out nobody's ever been fired for any of them, calls in a lot of questions, I believe.
Great point. Thank you, sir. Michael Jaco, your views on this dinner, the event.
So the last time President Trump, or he was a civilian at the time, went to one of those press events, that's when Obama criticized him. And so this recent one was the next time. Now, at that event, that night was supposed to be the night that SEAL Team 6 went in and did their hit, but Obama wanted them to wait. Because they waited, they came in with less favorable operational, the lighting was different. The amount of lift that they would have had for the helicopters was different. That's why they believe the helicopter crashed. So, maybe President Trump was kind of like pointing that out as well. I think maybe he will at some point. I looked at the guys that ran down the hall. He was engaged by someone. You could see the shots coming from the gun right as he ran by, but he kept running. And when you saw him on the floor, there was no blood, no bullet holes. There were initially people were saying that he was dead, and then we see that he's not. So I agree with everyone so far that this is basically exposing the press and also the enemy within. So the press is the enemy of the people. The enemy within is the Democrat Party, who Trump said is worse than a foreign adversary. So they're exposing themselves. The press is the Democrats are exposing themselves. The rhinos are exposing themselves, and the press is being exposed. So I think this is another great event. I think that was coordinated and planned, and came out like central casting. Perfect.
Thank you, Michael. The news behind the news and the story behind the story right here on this panel. Thank you very much. We'll close it out with Derek Johnson.
Well, it's like Jaco said, the first time President Trump decides to attend this is all strategy. It's all operational. It's the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide, page 11, pyramid. Why did we change the word agitation in 1966 to assassination in 2016? Right before President Trump, 4 days before President Trump rolls down the escalator to announce his candidacy, the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide is coming out, and they changed the word from agitation to assassination as a clandestine covert operation. that we can use. And then it ties in also in the Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide. You'll find down on maybe page 16 somewhere in there, you'll see Executive Order 12333 by President Ronald Reagan, which is known as the Assassination Executive Order. So there's a tie-in there. And then you got to go to the media. We're talking about the media here, right? So they're under FCC investigation. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, the View, PBS got defunded, NPR got defunded. I mean, President Trump's hammered all these people. That is the application, again, of a national emergency. So we're using all of their abuse, their constitutional abuse, with the 1973 War Powers Resolution, where a president had to declare a national emergency to utilize the military. President Trump we're going to apply Lieutenant Colonel Bosey's comment earlier. We'll apply that word in there. He's saying to you guys, we'll just use your own abuse against you, and you can go do this to yourselves, right? Even though this is all operational, it's already been done, but for the target audience that don't know that, that's what's taking place. And little things like Charlie Kirk incident, right? All right, so all of a sudden, this little pipsqueak in Butler, PA, that looked 21 years old, got pimples on his face, he can control his breathing at 165 yards open sight and hit President Trump in the ear in the first shot. All right, no way. All right. Also, you go out to the other incident, right, with quote unquote Charlie Kirk, 200 yards. The guy assembles his weapon on there, and he's like 20 something years old, and then he deassembles his weapon, drops down, puts it in his pants somehow. That but he hits Charlie Kirk at 200 yards under a tent at a downhill trajectory, controlling his breathing as well the first time. All right, and then they showed what with Charlie? They showed this massive auditorium, and they had President Trump, the cabinet, the defense secretary, it had everybody there. That would have been a national security breach like nobody's business, not only for enemy's sake, but what if there would have been an earthquake, or what if the building collapsed? I mean, that would have been stupid. And President Donald John Trump is not stupid. He's not an idiot like the left and all these people out there think. That would have been a massive, catastrophic national security breach amongst all kinds of other things. So when you go back really quick to the National Defense Authorization Acts of 21 to 25, when the world thought that quote unquote Joe was president, how is there in only one of those a mention of Iran and assassinations at the same time in 2023? The whole world didn't know about any kind of assassinations until 2024. So how is it in the National Defense Authorization Act? By the way, remember President Trump said in the State of the Union, authorization. I don't need authorization. I already have it. That is an authorization. All right, so how is it in the 2023 national defense, the defense budget for the president and his military, how is it for the world that it would have been Joe, Iran, and assassinations in 2023, and they didn't show the assassination attempt start until 2024? And so here's your validation. 11 days after Butler, PA, they had the secretary, the director of the Secret Service in under oath. And they asked her a dumb question. If it were real, it's a dumb question. They asked her, did President Trump receive the same security detail that he would have received as a sitting president? Well, that was 2024. It wouldn't have mattered if he was a sitting president or not, because to the world, they displayed him as a former president. So he would have been a candidate for the 2024 election, which they received Secret Service as well. But that would have been a case if you were a lawyer. It doesn't matter how much you love somebody. This is where you got to remove emotions. If you're a lawyer sitting there, you go, objection, Your Honor, that's irrelevant, right? Because he wouldn't have been a sitting president to the world, because that's what they displayed him as. So you should have asked the question, hey, as a election candidate, did he receive security detail that he would have received as what he's supposed to be? So it's a dumb question, because if he was an election candidate, do you hear how I worded that? It didn't even make sense, right? So they asked, did he receive the same? And what did she say? She said, no, not a sitting, but a continuity government.
Thank you, Derek Johnson.
It's all an operation.
Yes, central casting. You've heard it here. Correspondence Dinner. Derek Johnson, Michael Jaco. Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Sellers and Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi, on behalf of America and the rest of the world, we salute you and thank you for your continued service, because that oath never sunsets. God bless you all. Thank you very much. I'll be right back. Thank you, sir.
His commentary and analysis is among the best, bar none. His words serve as a masterclass. He deconstructs the deceptions of the PSYOP war. He is the author of The Greatness Awaits You, the national leader of Australia One Party Incorporated, a monthly panel participant in JMC's Global Defense War, in a league of his own, an international treasure, a follower of Jesus Christ. He is Ricardo Bosi. Ricardo Bosi is a published author and speaker, international business consultant, former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, having served 24 years in the Australian Army, including postings to the Special Air Service Regiment, the 1st Commando Regiment, Headquarters Special Operations, and the U.S. Combined Joint Task Force Headquarters in Kuwait. Don't miss JMC Broadcasting's Bosi Briefs, where John sits down with Ricardo, helping to connect the dots, making sense of the madness, keeping us all grounded and united as the battle between good and evil play out before our very eyes. Join John and Ricardo every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at jmcbroadcasting.com.
All right, as a reminder, please visit jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on the upper left-hand portion of the navigation bar on contributors. Locate our contributors, and you can connect up with them, follow their work, and perhaps some of them have offered the ability for you to reach out to them via email. I want to thank, it's been an extended broadcast. It's very difficult to control a panel that has so much to offer. So if it's a long show, pause it, come back, watch it later. Great information. I'm grateful. And I want to thank our esteemed guests for their time and expertise in today's panel, addressing issues that concern each and every one of us, not only here in America, but all across this world. Quick announcement before we wrap up. Joining me, let's put up the 107 publication so I have the dates and such before. Thank you very much. The all-new Patriot Q&A Power Hour market calendars in our private Zoom room live. I'll be your host. Juan is our guest. He will answer your questions for 1 solid hour. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com. Click on Premium Portal to learn about this option. And of course, remember, everything we publish and produce here is free. Premium Portal is separate. Come join us May 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern. And be sure to catch my JMC's 3 to 5 minute daily war reports published at JMC Broadcasting and our distribution network. I want to thank you, the viewers, for liking, following, and sharing the content. We assemble military, intelligence, and economic experts to bring to you the information that you need to help us make sense of the madness. Be safe, everyone. Stay alert, and may God be with you.